What's up, everybody? Welcome. Welcome to the show. So, I'm about to hop into a call. I will be joined by Swole, AnnTIFA and Lampe of Lampe Creative. I will be playing games and shooting the shit, doing a sort of debrief on the debate that happened today between Vaush and Mexie. And well, I'm not going to talk about it beyond just letting you know that that's what we'll be doing.
First cut on this record has been
okay. And what else? Anything else I need to say in terms of housekeeping? I guess I'll just say that you can check out you can get into the on-screen chat by going to theoryplebe.com/live. And I just realized I need to make this window go away because it looks corny AF. It's not supposed to be there. This window that's on screen. But what's up? Is anybody here? Will anybody be here? We will see. All right, hopping into the chat.
In some places.
We're gonna spy on
It's just like, it's been completely dysfunctional for like 15 years and people are still pushing envelopes in places that don't even make sense.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh, hey.
Hey,
I
what's
didn't
up?
hear you go, we're gonna spy on them.
I heard something.
You got me.
Nice try.
Nice.
Should I grab a beer for this?
Was that an Ann burp? Was that
No.
No, that was me.
Oh, that was a Lampe burp. Okay. I'm used to
It
hearing
was a
Swole
LaCroix burp too.
Oh,
It's been
that's
a while
the
since I've
worst
had a
kind.
LaCroix.
Oh, LaCroix. Oh, LaCroix sounds good. Ooh, I'm running out of energy.
Yeah. Everybody take a second to introduce yourselves and tell me what you're up to.
I'll go first, I guess. I am Swole. I was in the middle of watching a Deep Space Nine documentary. Because why the fuck not?
Cool. I mean, I don't know the answer to that question. Why the fuck not?
No, it is cool. Cool is correct.
Wait, are you saying that being correct means being cool? Or
No, it was correct that it was cool that I was watching that documentary.
oh, okay. Right. Okay. Well, I'm glad to be correct and cool.
Yes.
What's up, Quack? Welcome, Oxen. Welcome, folks, to the chat. I see Anarchist Tech Support. Dangerous Maybe.
wow.
Hey.
What up? Welcome. Dead chat.
Come
Yeah,
on.
you're right. It's a dead chat.
The celebs are here.
Yeah.
Who else is here? Want to introduce yourselves?
Hello, it's AnnTIFA, and I'm playing Stardew Valley, and I'm being attacked by skeletons in the mine right now. So that's fun.
Mining. And oh no, why am I on this level? Ew. No, I wanted to. No. I want to load a different. How do you? Okay, Lampe, really quick. How do you? Oh, and I guess I better say Doom in the Twitch thing. So, Doom Eternal. Lampe, how do you choose which level you want to be playing? Because I want to go. I'm trying to master a certain level.
So here's the thing. As I recall, the way that works is that you have to either continue on where you last left off, or you have to manually go through to select a stage and then play that stage. But when that stage is over, I think it's in the main menu.
Is it when you go to the pause menu? Is it just in milestones?
I don't think so, because I think those are...
Jesus Christ.
Those are more
like those are in the level.
achievements or something.
Yeah, you have to go to the... I'm pretty sure you have to do it for the main menu. But the thing is, even then, when you finish the stage, you have to like go back out to the main menu and do it again, or it'll take you to the last level in the story mode that the furthest level you've done in the story mode.
I don't want to go.
It's been a while since I've played it.
Wait, oh, it said master levels. That's probably the shit. Okay, that sure seems like what I'm looking for. Okay, well, I'll have to get back to that screen probably. All right, well, what are we talking about today?
Well,
You tell me.
well, I didn't go yet, and I think I'll do that now.
Oh yeah, you go.
I am Aaron Lampe of Lampe Creative, and supposedly I am writing this new tabletop RPG, but mostly I seem to be pacing instead.
What does pacing mean?
Walking around, just aimlessly in
Yeah,
the
David, you know
upstairs
what
of this house.
pacing means.
It's just walking around. Cool. Yeah, I got like 5,000 steps walking in circles in my own house yesterday.
Yeah. I'm definitely in that mode right now.
Cool. And this game is Doom Eternal. It is a gift from Lampe to me. And Swoletariat, before we were on the call, said that it gives him anxiety. And so, but that's the main reason I'm playing it.
You bastard.
Oh, Camrad Saru in the YouTube chat said that I can do it from the base. I don't know where the base is, I guess.
Can you? Oh, yeah. No, you can.
Okay, what
You're
is the
not
base?
wrong.
How do I get to the base?
Well, generally by being on a level that ends or begins at the base.
Oh.
I
Is
think
that like
there's is there a way you can fast travel to it that I haven't, or that you unlock after you get Hayden?
Hold on, I just reset the mission. That might get me to where I need to go. I hope so. Oh, wow, that went way further back than I thought it would, but it should be fine. Whatever. Anyway, so today, Vaush had Mexie on, and I don't know, that's kind of what we were talking about, and so...
A real barn burner.
Man.
Hmm.
What a fucking ride. So Lampe's the only person in chat right now who wasn't a part of that, or who hasn't seen it, I mean.
Yeah, fill me in. What went on?
Yeah,
So you know Mexie and you know Vaush of
Well,
them.
I know Vaush at least tertiarily. I do not know Mexie.
Oh, well then...
You don't know Mexie?
No.
And you
by
barely know
name, at
Vaush, it sounds like.
I know of Vaush, and I have seen Vaush say things to crazy people that in hilarious circumstances. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's him.
Fair.
You got him.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's probably most people's take, unless they've also seen like where he, you know, gets clipped for saying, basically clipped in a way that makes it look like what he's saying is that he just wants to put all trans people in ditches. But that was a viral clip, but it was obviously very purposefully curated to make it seem that way. And it's so there's if you only live on Twitter, then that's probably your impression.
Well, but he also, as I understand it, like almost courts that sort of thing. Like it's like a come at me bro style of leftist expression, right? Like.
Well put.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
apparently somebody did come at him, and that's what we're discussing.
Yeah.
Well, let's set the stage here.
Yeah. You want to set the stage?
Okay, so Mexie, I wouldn't call Mexie an SJW personally. Like she's definitely a step above. And in fact, I mean, 1 or 2 years ago, I would have just called her a good left tuber, a bread tuber. Because you know her stuff is all. It was mostly straight out of political economy classes in university. She was, it's all good stuff. She puts it in a way, explains it quickly in a way that's understandable. And then more recently, she's been getting into a little more of the cultural stuff, reading some of the more SJW stuff. Like she's really into Settlers. She's into Robin DiAngelo, apparently, White Fragility. A lot of like indigenous ways of knowing type stuff she talks about. It gets a little cringe, but she's still overall, pretty good. Anyway, so she's kind of on the in the Thought Slime, American Johnson side of the woke tube, I guess you would call it. She's a bread tuber, whereas Vaush is a bread tuber too, but he's on the obviously the closer to the dirtbag left side, even though he's very he's pretty woke too.
Yes.
He's woke. He just performatively, masculine and aggressive.
He's basically the woke skull who's performatively masculine. Yeah, that's
exactly it. Actually.
Yeah.
Who could use with a little bit deeper readings of
Yeah.
Lenin, Trotsky, Marx, probably some anarchists because he's an anarchist. But overall he's pretty good, and he's a debater. Debate me, bro. And what was so recently Vaush got in a fight, not in a fight. He made he had a stream where he was talking about black nationalism, saying that black nationalism was basically just ethno-statism for blacks, which
sometimes true.
Sometimes true, but I think definitely a lot of the time not. Also,
yeah. Also, a lot of times not. Yeah.
So his take was kind of cringe.
Yeah.
And I think so. He claims he settled that with some black people, I guess, and maybe either has a better understanding, maybe not. I don't know. He seems to have settled it. He claims he settled it, but someone on Twitter, Lottie Blix made a comment. What the hell was the comment? Somebody posted it. About Debate Me Bros, and it was vague posting about Vaush and Xanderthal, and then she commented on it, agreeing, saying, the whole Debate Me Bro culture on Twitter is is cringe, it's toxic, blah blah blah. Thought Slime commented onto that too. So you had the holy trinity of SJW cringe posting, and then Vaush posted, hey, if you guys are talking about me, why don't you actually just say it to my face and not be little babies? And then Mexie replied, the only one out of the three. And then I guess they set up a chat, and then the chat happened today.
Damn it!
Oh,
Damn
wow.
it! Damn it! I do not have gasoline in my chainsaw, so I can't just kill that fucking thing. That's the worst. Oh no, I'm gonna get ruined here. So that was actually a better explanation than what I would have given, because I kind of would have probably just forgotten about the context a little bit more. But so good job. But yeah, it was a conversation that needed to happen.
Right. Yeah. Vaush has been looking to do a conversation like this with someone on the soft left for a while.
Yes.
The uwu left,
Uwu
as
left.
he called it today.
Yeah, that's the new name. Yeah. And so how? Okay, well, a couple of things. So first of all, Anarchist Expert says, honestly, Settlers is an important bit to read for several reasons: for breaking down just how fucked the global cost of capitalism is in human blood, and later the organizing with actual rather than performative intersectionality or intersection. Yeah, for learning the importance of actually organizing intersectionally. I would only add to that Anarchist Export, there are ways of doing it. Or ways of getting that understanding that don't rely on an entire book that is historically cherry picking to weave a narrative to say that there is no such thing as a white working class, which is the argument Settlers is making. And you could just as easily read A People's History of the United States, which actually the People's History of the United States says, in the first chapter, that racism was instituted to divide the working class, which is true. Because Settlers does this thing where it's just erasing every white ally who's ever been in the struggle. It really is. And it just acts like the general tendency is always just that the working class will always lean petit bourgeois, which is like, so, if you think I'm being overly simplistic, like, I mean, you can run that up against a bunch of other books that do stuff that's similar. So, Draining the Veins of Latin America, I think is the name of the book.
Open Veins of Latin America?
Thank you. Open Veins of Latin America. Very
good book.
It's capitalism based too, in a way that doesn't erase like as much as I think. There is a sort of race and standpoint reductionist approach to history that Sakai succumbs to, that is only really like useful to people who are basically capitalist realist, and now that they are like going to go the route of Ta-Nehisi Coates reparation. And like that's spicy. I know that Settlers has been very hot ever since Trump won. It's been very hot ever since Trump won, but that's because
so hot right now.
Yeah, it's so hot. Hansel's so hot right now. Yeah.
So hot right now.
So it has been ever since Trump won, because Radlibs who decided, oh my God, Trump won. How is that possible in 2016? As though progress had ever been achieved, and therefore this was actually surprising to them, right? It like Settlers just became like the de facto go-to, and it's like there are so many other like super based like books that get into colonialism and to show how it relates to capitalism. But they're not.
Imperialism by Lenin.
Yeah. They just don't. They don't pander as much to fundamentally liberal presuppositional frameworks and to race and standpoint identity reductionism, which is the case with Settlers. Anyway, so and I know that there's a bunch of people who enjoy reading it and think that everyone should read it, and I'm not against reading it, and I will reread it, and I will read it more and more, because obviously the more everyone reads it, the more important, the more relevant it becomes, and it's obviously got really important insights in it, but all I'm saying is that there are other places that you can go to get the same thing. Open Veins of Latin America. Read that.
Eduardo Galeano.
Yeah, read that shit. But we'll get into kind of what those fundamentally liberal presuppositions are and the limitations of those as we talk about this debate. But let me preface it by saying I think both sides are wrong, and both sides were right. Both sides were right. Both sides were wrong. Both people are great. Being wrong doesn't make you ungreat. So that's my little disclaimer, because at least Ann and I finished it together, and that was
that was kind of
that was Ann's immediate takeaway before I'd even contributed my thoughts to it.
I thought Vaush. Well, I mean, we could get into what they actually talked about, but my takeaway was that Mexie was the most wrong. Vaush wasn't so much wrong as he was cringe in a couple areas.
That's what I said. Well, fucking said, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I mean, I agree more with Vaush. Vaush is more right, but he sounds like an asshole.
I'm under the impression that's generally how it works with Vaush.
Actually, Vaush sometimes does pretty good, but like he did like. Okay, this is what I wrote down. So he was cringe because he kept stating his purpose and like the importance of winning and winning.
Yes.
Which like he should have said that the purpose of the debate is finding truth or exposing bad arguments, and or he could have said maybe the point is winning for the left, or instead of just winning for himself in the debate at the time. Like that's kind of the wrong approach to go into debates, and that's why Mexie cringed at that. And that
she
was
just calling it a flex. Like everything she didn't agree with that Vaush, she's like, that's just a flex. You're just flexing.
Yeah, that was cringe too. That was super cringe.
Well,
it sounds to me like I lucked out in having missed this debate.
I mean,
no, it needed to happen because
some things needed to be said.
Look, the reason it had to happen is because there's this fundamental liberal mode on the liberal left that is just taken to be de facto true, and it's incapable of dealing with people who disagree, and it sees you as either like woke or like clueless. And like Mexie kind of like, she at one point basically said it, is that, you know, she's like, I don't even know if I could say that you're part of like a pipeline to like basically the right side of the left. So that, you know, because and what she's talking about is like this framework, this idea that people like Vaush are bringing people out of like what would otherwise be the right, and eventually they'll all get over there and start listening to Thought Slime and her. And it's like, what if like 95% of humanity is never going to want to listen to you and Thought Slime, and your mode isn't appealing to people who weren't already radical libs before they realized capitalism is bad? What about that? What about people who didn't decide that leftism as it was cooked up on Tumblr is the right leftism? What about people who think that you or Thought Slime could never talk to most people? And that when we say most people, we're not just talking about most white people. We're talking about people who just aren't interested in performative woke shit. What about that? Because, by the way, most people aren't. What about that? So, and that's not something, I guess, that she's considered ever in her entire life. Yeah. She literally, she showed no inkling that she's ever thought about that. But to be fair, same with Vaush, because Vaush tends to post-rationalize how how he does what he does, so that he is a pipeline for this stuff. So basically, they're both operating in this sort of what I would call a flawed assumption of, like, well, there's basically the right left, and it's the softy one, but we just got to loosen some people up so they can get into it. And it's like, well, what if there's other values that people will prioritize as they mature, and that's just not necessarily going to be it?
Well, something I think needs to be said for lanes of discovery too. I have a hard time with that. Like, I used to just, like, when I was done streaming early, I would just like raid Damon, because Damon would always be streaming like when I was done. Yeah. But it's like some of the people in the community were like, it's always this religious stuff, and I thought that the fact that he was going on about UFOs and you know, the Church of Marijuana, that was hilarious on 420. That was great. I thought that'd be enough, but you know, I'm just like, and that's one of the he's one of the places I can go that isn't going to scare off the normies that are being drawn into this kind of thing, you know. It's like there's so many of the people that I watch where it's like there's no chance. It's just going to scare these people away when we start rolling out the guillotines, because they're not ready for it, you know. And so I'm like, so where do I go from here? And most of the time, like, I'm like, well, now I'm going to have to start leaning in the directions of the other communities, you know, like Matt Colville. Like, I can do the stuff out of the Matt Colville communities, and that'll be fine. I don't know if there's a lot of growth in it, and like he you know, did a shout out for ContraPoints, so you know, he's somewhere near the left, and that seems to be part of the pipelining system that I'm looking at, right? It's like I can see, like, it's a real issue, though. It really is a real question that we really do need to figure out how to ask, is where are the people coming from? Because if we're all just putting on this bizarre leftist circus for the people that are already in our circles, then, like, are we doing any work? Are any of us going anywhere? Does it matter if we have the 30 most zealous people in activism? Yes. There's only 30 of them, you know? So, I don't know.
Yeah, like, once you're already in, and if you want to naturally move to the kind of woke baby side of you know, sensibilities on the left, then, you know, those videos might be great, watching Catherine and Mexie and friends. But yeah, those videos are not going to bring almost any. They're not going to expand the left in any way. Really.
Also, and this is a big one, is like, the left does not really exist, right? It hasn't really since, like, the end of World War II. There's always people who do the work of studying theory and organizing, doing praxis, and focusing, you know, on survival and resistance and mutual aid. And insofar as you're doing those things, you're doing a leftism. But as far as there being a general line, there isn't one. And so, you know, a lot of this division gets at, okay, can we build a general line? Can we build a general front? Can we build a mass movement that would actually, like, at the global level, force the IMF and the World Bank and the multinational corporations to capitulate to it? That is a unified front of worker co-ops and unions and cadres and all of it. Is there a way we can get there? Is there a way we can do that? That's the question. So welcome to the folks rating me right now, Mexie. I'm not going to be keeping an eye on. I'm not going to be keeping an eye on Twitch. So, but you're all welcome here. Thanks for coming by. And the reason I'm not keeping an eye on it is because I'm playing Doom. But you're rating into a stream where we're just now getting into some of the stuff about the debate that happened today between Vaush and Mexie, and you'll just kind of have to get the gist. Or if you want to catch up, you could go to YouTube right now, my channel. This video is there streaming as well, because I'm Twitch, YouTube, and my personal site streaming right now. And if you go, if you go to my personal site, theoryplebe.com/live, you can just go backwards and then fast forward to catch up, which is pretty dope. So anyway, so anyway, there's this division between people who realize that we haven't had a real chance at that broad kind of global kind of organizational level. We haven't had a real shot at that since the fall of the Soviet Union. And so the mode has been one of resistance, which is all about pockets of resistance. It's about politics of immediacy and of recognition and representation. It's one of protest that tries to get concessions from people like Biden or from university administrators rather than fundamental structural change, and which is fine. But it also has been one of fundamentally appealing to college student niche extreme liberals to recruit them with some professors and a sort of like idea of the subaltern to make some sort of like a revolutionary subject out of that. But obviously that's a pretty limiting, narrow, non-organizational, not definitely. It just that doesn't really have the possibilities for the kind of thing that we're talking about when we talk about that broad thing. So, maybe capitalist realism is real. Like, we're at the end of history. There is no chance of actually at that at the global level changing things in the way that we're talking about. But for those who are trying to do that project and think that through, a lot of the activist culture and the circle jerk, preaching to the choir, fucking all of that shit, like it just is, it's inherently unappealing anyway. And so that is part of this cultural divide here. Yeah. And so Lampe, when you're saying it looks like you didn't miss anything, it's like, well, yeah, except that the shortcomings of the typical activist mode came out into stark fucking contrast. Mask off.
No, what I meant was that I was better off hearing about it than I would have been seeing it. I'm not saying that it shouldn't have happened.
No, there's stuff that you'll just have to actually see for yourself. But yeah,
oh no,
it's like, okay, like Vaush was very charitable. She was very uncharitable. This I could, he said it several times to be like, see, that's why I won. And it's like, okay, so he's being a dickhead about it, but it's also absolutely undeniable that she was being totally uncharitable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, she'd make generalizations about him.
Yeah.
From the past and what she kind of knows.
And what were some of her arguments? Let's go through some of those, because some of them were pretty spicy and ridiculous.
Oh,
hey, Gina.
Gosh.
What was her main points?
So they kind of got to talking about Biden versus Bernie or bust. Should you vote for Bernie? Should you vote for Biden? They kind of went there. Sorry, okay, I'm kind of half distracted because I'm fighting bats in the mine right now. But I'll pause for a second. So yeah, they were talking about that a little bit, and Vaush is over here saying, "No, I'm right. Everyone needs to vote for Biden." And she was like, "Well, I don't think so because." I don't agree with that. I was really advocating for Bernie because I care about minorities and I just wanted harm reduction. But then some people of color came to me and told me that they're not going to vote. And so I listened to them and then I stopped fighting for Bernie. Because these minorities told me that, like, they aren't gonna vote for him, or
vote for Biden.
Like
they said they weren't going to vote for Biden.
Or was it Biden?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so she was using that as okay, and so she was using that as kind of like I was
like I was the ignorant white person, and
yes.
These minorities told me how I should think, and so I changed my mind because maybe my voice, my white perspective, just isn't an important perspective in this.
Yeah, what would she do if Clyburn came to her and said vote for Biden, right? Because Clyburn is a representative of the black community in South Carolina. Like, so what are you going to do about that, right? Like, this is.
And then Vaush shot back, like, what he's like, well, Biden's like greatest voting base is minorities. So like, how does this even work as an argument for listening to minorities, to sitting back and listening to minorities? They're voting for Biden. So I mean, and then he was insisting that really, if these people are going to say I can't vote for Biden because of his past or this, that, and the other, like, you have to challenge them on that. And he was saying, well, I mean, maybe that's, you can extrapolate that to other arguments. Like, if a Nazi comes up to you and says something ridiculous, you're going to challenge them on that, aren't you? Like, on national television, if you have a platform and someone says something, some black person or whatever minority says something racist or sexist or otherwise bigoted, you have to challenge them on these points. You can't just let it go because it's their experience or their perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And then she just didn't accept that.
That was the point where she got really snarky and just started being like, okay.
Yeah,
like, this
so
conversation's over.
Her point was like, if a person of color or minority tells you something as a white person or as a cis person or whatever, like, you have to listen to them.
Sit back and listen,
and then change your perspective or change your action.
Insofar as you do not do that, it's white.
Yeah, Vaush was like, okay, so fucking Morgan Freeman said
right,
that the way to address racism is to not ever talk about racism. Well, like, would you do you agree with that? She's like, well, he's a millionaire. And he's like, okay, so pretend a working class black man said that. Like,
which it still happens, by the way. Jamar, says that, don't call him black. He's not black. I'm not black. And it's like, well, that's a working class friend. I met him through organizing. It's a human being in my life. He's told me not to think in terms of race. I do think I think identity matters. People still call me a race reductionist because I think that at the fundamental level, we got to talk about the state and capital. But I still think that when we're talking about distribution of precarity and of harm dealt out by capitalism in the state, it is disproportionately affecting people who are marginalized along the axes of identity. Absolutely. But the argument here is that truth and justice and our understanding of those things basically come down to what someone of a particular interest group is going to tell us to think about that thing. And it's like, look, Bernie or bust versus riding with Biden. It's like, I'm sorry, there's nobody who can fucking, like, yes, if someone says, well, you know what, hey, maybe you haven't thought about this, and I'm black, and this relates to my experience in this way, it's like, that's very interesting, and now I have to think about that, absolutely. And I should listen to it, and not just be in a debate, and I shouldn't be in the Vaush, like, debate me, bro, like, well, I'm gonna get you, and just like, kind of like, that kind of like, what you all were kind of talking about, like the ego thing, or how it might fall into that sometimes. And by the way, people watching me play this game, I'm literally just running in circles because this thing is going to kill me if it catches up with me. And I have no gasoline, and I really don't know how I'm going to do it while talking. But anyway.
You're fucked.
Good luck.
But yeah, all I'm getting at is like, it's like this idea that like, oh, someone in your community is able to just have the black perspective is just wild to me. And then like being like, well, like I organize and you don't organize. You're an online person. And Vaush was like, he gave like a sort of litany of different organizations he's been a part of and the work that he's done. But even then, it's just like, okay, so maybe a certain kind of person of color is being attracted to your kinds of organizations that love to sit there and nod and listen empathetically and then just take people's word authoritatively on the basis of their identity. But that doesn't really speak for everyone, does it? It definitely doesn't speak for fucking like a lot of people I can think of who are in these groups that you're thinking that those people get to speak for. And the idea that you don't have to think about these things any further, or that, I don't know, it's just... This is why I'm saying it was definitely like this needed to happen, but it just looked so mask off. Like you can see how it's like if you go too far with that mode, like you really do stop thinking about certain things. Like your brain gets taught, I'm not going to think about these things. I'll just let these other people do it for me, and you're just taking things on authority at that point.
Yeah, and this is exactly the sentiment that I was arguing against in the video I made almost a year ago today,
Folding like cheap suits,
called "Folding Like a Cheap Suit," about in reaction to American Johnson and Thought Slime putting out videos like almost back to back, where they're basically just like pre-apologizing and sometimes afterward apologizing for people in their comment sections that were like telling them that, oh, you don't have the right to speak. It regards to EJ's American Johnson's PewDiePie pipeline video.
Yeah.
And they're just like saying that, just agreeing with their commenters, even though if you read the comments that they go over, they were completely ridiculous. And the EJ's just saying, oh, you know, I should listen. I'm sorry for not taking these considerations into account. I should have stepped back and not said anything, even though he made the fucking video in the first place and he had to respond to it. Oh, it's just, the whole thing's ridiculous. Anyway, the video's in chat now.
Oh, thanks for sharing that. Which
Is
chat?
it the one that you like just shared on Twitter?
Yeah.
Yes.
You're like, this feels relevant today.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, well, and the thing is then you had a debate with, and I love EJ, all right? I do. I love EJ. But you had a debate with EJ about this, and I think he thought that he performed better than he did, because he probably got told by some people in his community that he did a great job, but he didn't.
Oh, yeah.
He didn't do a great job, because if you were watching the comment section, the people in the comment section were consistently proving your point, because they it's like they were either being disingenuous or, once again, their brains turn off when there's a certain topic, and they just were not able to comprehend what you were saying. They kept taking you out of context. They kept turning what you were saying into something else. It was super fucking cringy, super fucking bad faith, super fucking disingenuous, and I was absolutely like shook by the fact that that wasn't something that he called out in the midst of it. That instead, like, he kept acting like, oh, everything's hunky-dory and you're having a great, like, honest conversation, but he was letting that behavior go unchecked in his comment section the whole time. And I was like, dude, like, yeah. that's not like, you're not helping anyone here. Like when you, like, this is why people don't understand or don't talk about, or like the importance of talking about understanding parasociality in terms of this stuff, right? Like, I forget, like, there was a host of, like, streamers who talked about parasocial relationships in about a month span. It became a hot topic, and like Ollie from PhilosophyTube did the one where he's hanging out with a horse and he talks about parasocial relationships. I don't know if it really clicked in his brain what he was talking about, because he's been super parasocial ever since then, where he, like, is constantly flirting with his audience and, like, calling his kiddos, calling his, like, fandoms, like, his kiddos. I don't know, all sorts of weird shit. And it's like, maybe he thinks he's doing it, like, consciously, and therefore it's ironic. But the point for people who don't know what this is or what that's about is parasocial dynamics are when you think that you fucking know somebody and you have a relationship with somebody that you do not have a relationship with, because they're an image on a screen, they're a celebrity, whatever it is. And basically, like, Mexie was super playing into it, because she kept talking about like yeah, but this is about building trust with individuals that you're, like, organizing with. He's like, dude, we're talking about people in the comments. We're talking about people in the Discord. Do you seriously... I'm just, like, shook by that. It's like, you seriously think that these people are, like, the same as, like, you're organizing with them in a real space? Like, insofar as you think that they are, you're fucking yourself over, and you're stunting their growth, because they're not growing. Like, the thing is like, commenters who are attention deprived, fundamentally, and we're all attention deprived for the reasons that, capitalism, time, energy, things that I like to talk about all the time. Like, if you think that you've been deprived of recognition because of the system, and the way to get it is by, like, doing this whole, like, I feel hurt by what you said on your, it's like, and then for that person to be not racist, or for that person to be not transphobic, they then have to fold like a cheap suit, as you say, but I would just say capitulate. They have to, like, they have to, oh, and the thing is sometimes you do say something that's like, you need to check yourself, right? And sometimes sometimes you might really realize you were wrong. But the idea that there is like this, you just do always like capitulate, it's like, that is the most infantilizing liberal racist shit I've ever heard. And here's why it's liberal race. And liberal racism is the kind of racism you get from Democrats, where it's just like, right-wingers, take it too far, and they say this shit all the time. But there is something to it where it's like, we're not going to make these classes hard because this is like, these students are black, or these students are rural. And I've talked to professors who talk about how people bring this shit up in faculty meetings. Like, we can't have, and it's like, you're literally lowering your standards. You're literally lowering your standard. I'm sorry, me, as a person who went to community college where these people on the faculty talk about, like, no, we can't have too high of standards because these kids are rural. The professor would tell me about that shit, and it's like, and then I sat in on the professors who argue for that mode, and in their classes, and they make everything super easy and feels based, and it's all very patronizing and condescending, and just like thinks that you don't have a fucking shot because you've been structurally set up in like a. But yeah, okay. In the meantime, without a challenge, I can't better myself. Anyway, that's just one example. But it's like, also without, like, people gotta, if someone says, no, your reasoning doesn't add up, and your mere standpoint in this conversation is not enough for me to say I'm wrong. I'm just saying, like, I've listened, I've thought through it, and your standpoint is not authoritative on this matter specifically. If you can't do that, you're training your brain how not to think about specific things, which is really dangerous when we're trying to be intersectional. And I think we have to be intersectional. Now, when I say intersectional, I mean all of the different identities that are marginalized, every single one of them, as well as the ones people don't normally talk about, all of them. We have to learn to organize with mostly everybody, right? If we are to have a broad line, and if you want to run your mouth about what it is to be black in a ghetto when you have no experience of that, shut the fuck up and sit down. And that's real. Like, genuinely, shut the fuck up and sit down. But if you want to be like, well, I can't argue with this person because they're black, it's like, do you think they're a fucking child?
Yeah, it's
what the fuck is your problem? You seriously think that? You seriously can't think for yourself? You don't think that they can disagree with you in a humane, like, mature way? You seriously think that they're just going to be fucking childish and like, lose it because you're disagreeing with... and this does happen in organizational spaces.
Just racist.
It's just a fucking weird, like, mommy patronizing way of being racist. It's fucking weird.
To grab onto that thread, when you were saying it stunts their growth, another way this shit stunts their growth is that they, like Mexie was saying, talking about building communities, and it gives people this illusion that you can build communities on left Twitter and left tube. You can't. You can't. You can build communities. You can't organize. You can't do anything productive, really. You can draw people into the left, but we need a way to spit them out into the real world, and we need to direct them. Say, you know what, we're not going to build an organization online that's going to mean anything. You have to get out in the world, go join your Marxist org, your anarchist org, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But we need to start doing that en masse, I think, a lot more.
And we're not saying that she doesn't, but then again, she also just kept being like, Vaush just doesn't either. And it's like, well, he did. And also, by the way, as someone who does and has for like the last 8 years, I can just say, like, these people have made a lot of spaces unfucking livable, and not for myself only, which is also a thing, but like leaving myself out of it. Like, I'm sorry, I know 2 fucking people who won't identify as trans even though they're on fucking hormone replacement therapy. Why? Because of the fucking the community, the and how fucking toxic it gets sometimes when you're surrounded by people who, like, you just can't disagree without like getting called like names, isms, whatever. It's just like that goes too far. And like the thing is like we shouldn't have to say, oh, that can go too far and that can foster a toxic dynamic in a space. Like, obviously it fucking does. We shouldn't have to say that. But when you're not getting that basic recognition from the people who foster this dynamic constantly, and these people want to just be like, no, you're just like, what kind of communication can you possibly have? And once again, like, if your local org loves this mode and you're the fucking squeaky wheel, then like fucking get over it or find a new org. Like, if it's a softy org and everybody's about sitting around listening to each other, like, fucking, you're wrong. Like, you know, because, like, that's obviously the community there. But once again, that attracts certain kinds of people who are there for really good reasons, and certain people who really just want their identities and their egos, like, just to fucking get a lot of, like, validation, which is, like, cool. You've been systematically deprived of that. But also, like, you don't see how that can be inherently infantilizing when people at an actual, like, cognitive level disagree with you, but they're, like, lying and performing this tokenistic, fucking patronizing, like, coddling, like, shit. Like, I'm sorry. Like, and you're right. Like, these people, like, in that Folding Like Cheap Suits video that you did, you talked a lot about it. Like, you showed examples of it where it's like they can't even just like talk to a camera without constantly doing preemptive disclaimers. And it's like, okay, well, while that's going to make like 3 people in your audience who are really loud feel like, oh, well, I've been heard finally. What it's going to do for everybody else is going to be like, what are you going on about? And why are you doing this? Because most people don't want it and most people aren't interested in it. And this constant disclaiming preemptive shit, it's just like, it becomes so performative and scripted if you do it a few times that after you've done it a few times, you start to sound like it's straight up like caricature of yourself. Yeah. And then other people who maybe, and then let's just say that you've really thought through it. You've really done your research. You really are like about as like doing it for the right reasons as you possibly can be. And I definitely think EJ does it for the right reasons. But after you do it for a while, then like what? So it becomes like this mode. And the thing about modes is people can just adapt to a mode and then they can perform it. The way that, I don't know, I'm not going to drop any names here because this person in particular definitely doesn't deserve any recognition ever for the rest of their life until they really change their fucking mode. But there's a person who's like doing performative dirtbagging right now who's trying to be like Vaush. And it's so cringy. Constantly calling trans people dude, coming into my streams saying they want to debate me about being non-binary, saying, you know, and you know, just constantly telling people that they're fucking retarded, you know, just so cringy, so disgustingly cringy. And it's so obvious that they're trying to be like Vaush because they weren't like that like for the year that they were making videos before they decided that they were going to be a big, you know, person, streamer, whatever, you know? And so it's like, I'm saying that when you start performing anything, like there's a way that someone else can be like, well, now I'm going to be like Vaush. Well, now I'm going to be like EJ. But if you're not based, and I love to use that word because I mean it in 2 senses. Like one is authentic, and the other one is like based in like theory and reflection and actual conversations with the kinds of people that you're saying that you need to listen to, etc.
Next gen based.
If you're not based in it and then you're just performing it, you're still going to be welcomed by the demographic that has been inculcated that just wants that performance. And then it's just like, well, okay, whatever. But it is just performance at that point, and it is really easy to exploit when you have people who think that this performance stuff is the solution, basically. And that's the other thing. It's just like the idea that listening and empathy is quote unquote like the solution and the goal of leftism. Yeah. And it's like, okay, it's a mode, but it's like a mommy mode. And I'm sorry, daddy also is real. Mommy and daddy need to talk to each other. They need to respect each other. But instead there's this fundamental liberal idea that everybody's got to be like a liberal, but just a little bit like more extreme. And I'm just like, sorry, we're going to fucking die. We're going to literally die if you think that that's the reality, because most people aren't that one-dimensional. Most people aren't extremely liberal or extremely conservative. Most people aren't just prioritizing mommy or daddy. Most people have a more nuanced perspective of humanity. But that's what my fucking dirtbag and woke skull video just was about, the one that I did the lecture on my channel on. It's like, that's exactly what I'm trying to get at. And I'm doing it in that video in a way more level-headed way than I'm in right now. But it's like the fact that Mexie like, oh well, there's just no more conversation here, and then acted like that for like another 40 minutes, like kind of just like spicy.
That's a long time for a conversation to have been.
Oh,
over.
she was done.
No,
she was done, but stuck around for quite a while. Yeah. And it was just like, look, she's probably going to reflect on it, and maybe she'll realize, you know, I really was uncharitable in that, and maybe I really was like just kind of upset, and there's something about, you know, a toxic do-bro mode that rubs me the wrong way, and that's the way I get. And but you know what's really likely, and it's very sad. What's very likely is that she's gonna go back to her fucking discords, and then like 60 people are gonna tell her that she's fucking right, and then she's gonna like double down on this. And in the meantime, the next generation of human beings are gonna just say, get the fuck over politics altogether, or find a new mode, because that is just, I'm not saying the future is Vaush. I'm definitely not saying the future is like the Vaush team, because I don't think that's true. But the future is not the last 60 to 70 years of activism in liberal spaces either, because that's been spinning in circles for a long time, going nowhere.
Yeah.
I will say that I think one of Vaush's mistakes, and that I thought was cringe, was that he didn't adjust as daddy. He didn't adjust his mode to talk to mommy. At least, well, he did at the beginning, but I mean, he started going off on his, you know, he was swearing and ranting and raving, and you know, talking about crushing opponents, and and he's talking to Mexie here, and like that, he could have maybe bought some more charitability from her if he hadn't have. Like that's where she started to shut off. You could see when he started to kind of react in that way, even though he was, you know, right. But
no, that's the thing is like, yeah, no, there's being right, and then being an asshole about being right, and then there's saying I can't be right because I'm white.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all of his arguments about what would you say to Morgan Freeman, what would you say to a working class Morgan Freeman, whatever. All of those arguments were just like, I'm sorry,
because
like the fact that she hasn't.
Perspective isn't important.
Yeah,
sometimes your perspective, yeah.
Sometimes
like the white perspective.
Yeah, sometimes your perspective, yeah, which is like, sorry, but every person has to like what? You're just gonna tap out of every argument? Well, I can't have a perspective on trans things because I'm not trans. I can't have a perspective on black things because I'm not black. I can't have a perspective on ecological issues because honestly, I'm not a real vegan. I still eat meat, so I really can't speak to that. You'd have to talk to you have to talk to a vegan that I know, and I also can't have an opinion about the environment because I'm not tying myself to trees like some people I know, and honestly, like I can't have an opinion. Just like that's what I indicated earlier, like the danger of intersectionality is like, obviously I'm for intersectionality. I've been saying for like at least a year and a half that it is the intersectional international working class that we have to be on the side of and working for and organizing. But like, if intersectionality for you is just taking all of the IDPUL stuff you learned in middle school and then applying that all at once, where it just stacks up, like so-and-so gets to speak on this, and so-and-so gets to speak on that, and so-and-so gets to speak on this, and their opinion is going to be authoritative so long as they're the one in the space who's the representative of that thing. As long you just stack that up, because intersectionality has something about almost every area of life is addressed by intersectionality. Because that's the case, it's like, well, then you're turning your brain off to thinking about everything and just having the woke take on everything, when in reality, like, humanity and arguments and positions are complex, and there is no like hegemonic woke one right take that you can just drink the Kool-Aid for. But oh wait, you keep acting like there is. Oh, okay.
It's funny how that contrasts, that dynamic you just described, contrasts with I went to a Trotskyist event in February in Montreal, 3-day event, and there were, you know, I was kind of blown away by how I was expecting it just to be a bunch of white guys, but it was very, very diverse, trans people, but it was so, like, I mean, anybody from left Twitter would have called it class reductionist, because no one ever, you know, asked for pronouns or anything. But I mean, everybody was represented there, and shit,
that's like Red Republicans, which is an organization that Ann is in. It's like, you know, it's like.
Oh shit! Sorry. Let me just. I remember my point.
Yeah.
The point was, shit, I forgot it again. The point was, that you don't give speaking time based on identity categories. It's a meritocracy. It's the only meritocracy I've ever seen. Capitalism isn't one, but the people who read the most, who've been in it the most, done the most research, those are the people who got to speak on things, which was kind of refreshing.
Sorry, I actually missed what you just said because I was in the middle of three things. Can you repeat that?
Wait, instead of people getting a voice based on or shoving people into places of positions based on their identity categories. Stratification, yeah. That this Trotskyist organization was actually being a perfect, Jordan Peterson's perfect meritocracy of competence. It was the people who had been around in the organization the longest, who had done the most research, done the most reading, done the most work. Those are the people that got to talk on the subjects, and it was like it was actually kind of amazing to see.
Yeah,
Amazing.
And that sort of thing's important too, because I think what part of this is you don't always have an easy answer to things like this, and the easy answer would seem to be like what Maxie's saying, a reversal of the normal stratification. But that's not a solution. You know what I'm saying? That's not.
Yeah.
That's just, you're just turning the problem as it exists upside down. That doesn't mean that you've solved the problem. It just means, like, for example, if you were to say, well, a lot of these people who've been living in places where they've been subject to generations of subjugation, well, we could probably fix the problem if suddenly we put them in charge. But part of consistent systemic subjugation, for example, is bad education. So if you gave them the opportunity, they wouldn't know what to do if you suddenly put them in that position, because you can't just go from 0 to 130. There's steps in between those where there is more action that needs to be taken. It's another one of those things where equality isn't necessarily the same thing as justice. If everybody had the same now, starting from this moment, it doesn't fix the fact that so many people have been so disadvantaged for so long.
Mm-hmm.
Right, yeah, you can't just turn that problem on its head and expect it to be fixed.
Well, especially not when racism is an institutionalized thing, and you think that you can solve it within existing institutions. And seeing as a lot of these modes come down to demanding recognition from existing institutions, which, look, if you're going to do it, fine. And if you're if your special interest group is trying to get administrators to stop, like, literally trying to erase, like, black people off your campus, well, fucking Doug, go for it. I'm not, like, obviously that's not the argument. Like, it's not, but at the same time, like, there's a pretty prevalent thing on the left. When you get into these organizations, guess what? It's liberals in organizations, or people who are radical liberals, meaning that they're liberal but they just, like, take it to an extreme, and the whole mode is just like this performativity of who gets to speak and when they get to speak and how you give and get recognition in that dynamic. And it's like, look, this is all assuming the framework that as leftists we're trying to actually overthrow. And if your whole reaction to it is just, well, now it's our turn to do it, and we're going to basically reproduce the same thing, but we're going to invert the hierarchy, it's just like, well, here's the thing. And I just want to be clear, not to be taken out of context, because people probably will. But I'm not saying that this is like a black nationalism is the same as a white ethnicist. I'm not saying that. Like, and I'm also not saying all those things are all the same or good or bad. That's not at all, like, the thing here. And it's like, that's one of those topics that I'm not going to touch with, like, a 10-foot pole. But then the people who are, like, making a big ruckus about it right now on Twitter, people keep acting like that's white people, like that white mage person isn't. That white mage person who keeps making all these anti-black nationalism posts is black. So I mean, unless I'm wrong about that, but that's what it says in their fucking profile. Maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? But I'm just saying, like, what do you, like this stuff's always limited to, like, but what do you do when everyone disagrees? And this idea, well, it's not up to me and I can't have an opinion on it, is a cop-out from having to think. Mm-hmm. Right? Because experience can only get you so far. Experience can only get you so far. Once again, I'm going to use the example. If you're not from the fucking ghetto, You don't fucking talk about what it is like to live in the ghetto. But hey, if you've studied sociology and you therefore like know a lot more about some things, like you might know some stuff that might be relevant, but still at the experiential level, if someone's like telling you about something, you fucking listen up. And that's not a joke. Like, of course you listen up. It would be very ignorant to think that you don't listen up, and that it's like that the only way that you're going to be, that would be, well, I still have to be a debate-me bro about that. No, but the thing is like, I don't know anybody. I don't know. I really don't know that many people. Well, okay, that's wrong. It's like mansplaining is also real, right? But it doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that as soon as mansplaining is also literally real. Like as soon as you start looking for it, you start seeing it. But then again, like there are also people who literally are like, oh, someone who appears to be a man is explaining something, therefore it's mansplaining. Oh, it's a professor teaching something that they've studied their entire life. They are mansplaining. Well, okay, you're fucking stupid now, but you're taking this logic out of its like initial context and just like then you're universalizing it and projecting it everywhere. Which is.
Can we start a podcast?
No.
Yes.
No. Here's the thing: is like I can't normally be in this mode.
This is the best mode.
I know.
We need to monetize this mode.
Oh yeah, we could make a lot of money doing this. Yeah, I mean you're not wrong, but I would also it'd be bad for my mental health to stay in it. Like because ultimately what it incurs is like backlash and a ton of backlash from the kinds of people who fucking like love this shit and like. If you don't get energy from it and all it does is take energy from you to engage with this shit, then, which is to say if you're mature at all, then you're not going to be able to get anything else done in life. That's the real situation. Yeah. And so although YouTube and the entire attention economy would love nothing more than for all of us to just have a podcast talking about this nonstop for the rest of our eternities, it's like everything that's basically been said has been said. Like not a lot more is needed. And like so. But when I'm talking about the kind of backlash that you get from these people, let me use an example of a white person who came into my fucking. And by the way, it's relevant because they made it relevant. They come in to my my essay that I read the other day by Judith Stein. In that anthology put together by Adolph Reed, the renewing intellectual, the renewing Black intellectual history, right? And their whole thing was like, it turns out later, obviously, after they've written thousands of words and accused me of being a class reductionist and not caring about, and wanting to let quote unquote white people off of the hook and all of this shit, that they hadn't actually watched the video. Of course they hadn't fucking watched the video. And but the thing is like, it's very exhausting dealing with someone like this who thinks that they're like de facto right and they don't have to do the research because, their position is just, well, you don't get to have an opinion on this thing. And it's like, I'm sorry, they were telling me that I was tokenizing Adolph Reed and using a white woman to let white people off of the hook. Okay, well, if I'm sorry, but if Adolph Reed thinks that a white historian is necessary for this book, and he and the other professor doing this decided that that's a thing, it doesn't mean that he is one. First of all, they said he is a token black. They didn't just say that I'm tokenizing him, which to be fair, that does happen, and people do that, and that is fucked up. Yeah. So I'm not at all denying that tokenization happens. Obviously, it happens. But for him, for this guy who's in the comment sections, to say Adolph Reed is a token black for class reductionists, and then to say, what was the other thing that he said that was just so fucking mind blowing? He said he's no better than Candace Owens, and I'm sorry, wow. but that's telling someone who has been doing organizing for Black Power and labor power since the 60s. So a real fucking activist, an activist who Cornel West said is the most ingenious and consistent and courageous intellectual of his generation. You're saying that person's no better than a Candace Owens. And these, yeah, I'm just saying that these are the people that you have to deal with. And so like, but the thing is I'm trying to be sympathetic. I'm trying to, I understand. If you thought that all I was doing was tokenizing, Adolf Reed, if you didn't think that I had read, for instance, he's like, you need to read Bell Hooks, you need to read Cornel West. Well, if he'd watched the video, he would have known that I've read both of them because I say that. Obviously I've not read everybody, but I have fucking read them. And also he assumed, he's like, oh, you think that Adolf Reed is working in the tradition of Fred Hampton and MLK. Well, Cornel West is doing a better job of that. Yeah, well, Cornel West also said that, Reed is like the intellectual of his generation. So okay, whatever. But like, that engagement is so fucking exhausting and dispiriting. I hate it. I can't do it for a living. I can't be that person. It would make me into a 24/7 Vaush mode. It absolutely would. Because I'm not going to sit here and mollycoddle these people.
Yeah.
And the thing is I was trying to be as sympathetic. This is why it kept going on and on, though. It kept going on and on because I was like, I'm being sympathetic to this person, being like, well, if I thought that this person, if I thought that I was tokenizing, then how would I, then if I just kind of wrote them off and said, well, that's racist for you to even say that, then that's not going to do any good. Like, could do more harm than good. So I spent a lot of time trying to respond, like, cordially, respectfully, and one of those things where it's just like with Vaush versus Mexie. I kept being credible, being generous, assuming the best, and he kept assuming the worst and not being credible because he thinks that he's got the one woke position, and therefore to give me any license would be just like inherently like he's not being a good ally now if he does that. And it's like, yeah, this is a consistent thing. And not only that, that person kept deleting their comments and then commenting again later. And which is a strategy, by the way. If someone responds to you and like if someone responds to you and highlights your contradiction in your thought, and then you delete your comment so it gets rid of their comment, then yeah, that is a way of coming back and making it so that the first time someone clicks on this video and scrolls down, they're going to see your comment, which someone else hasn't responded to. It's just that comment, and it's like, no, I had engaged, I had read their thousands of words, I'd responded.
Then they accused you of removing
they
comments,
accused me
right?
of deleting comments at that point. Yeah, and I was like, okay, well, funny thing is I've been screenshotting this ever since you deleted your first comment, so I actually have the whole conversation. And they're like, well, I haven't been doing that. And I'm like, is that a gotcha?
Yeah.
So what else did Mexie say?
Anyway,
And let's be clear, Ann likes Mexie, Swole likes Mexie, or at least they have. They both watched a lot of their content.
Mexie.
Yeah.
Watched a few Mexie videos.
Here's the thing:
Yeah,
I'm not gonna stop watching Mexie videos. I'm not gonna stop watching Thought Slime or. But the thing is like the liberal left mode, which is what they're in, has a tremendous amount of shortcomings and contradictions that have to be dealt with and can't just be woke signaled into oblivion because you quote unquote don't have the identity to be able to speak on the matter. Well, you keep speaking on the matters anyway, and you keep character assassinating people who speak on the matter, and guess what? Assuming that they've never spoken to a person who is in the quote unquote category that you think that well, if you only spoke, they do it all the time on Twitter. Oh, well, if you would only listen to people of color, then you shut the fuck up. Do you know? Here's the thing: I've got plenty of people of color. They don't want to fucking come on here because they don't want to deal with the backlash from the people who are gonna be like, you're a traitor. Like, I know people who leave communities over this shit because they just aren't liberal at their in their bones. You know what I mean? Like, or because they fucking grow up and their ego trips have like run into the inherent contradictions of actually living in the real world. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, I'm dying so bad. This is probably the worst I've ever done in Doom Eternal. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna try to win this time. Punkside says, I got called a crypto eugenicist for saying the testing for Down syndrome in Iceland is probably something they need to do, but it's not something that is needed in most places.
Yeah, something like that happened with Jackie Fox. Somebody came in with a very peculiar definition of eugenics, which makes me feel like I'm going to push up the project I was doing on the ASA's proclamation about race from back in the 90s, because if people don't know what the word eugenics actually means, we've got bigger problems. that one's really, really bad.
Yeah.
Wait,
No,
serious issue.
Jackie.
Well, there's
Right.
people who think that if you even say population control or like population growth in if you even say those words, that's an inherent dog whistle for eugenics programs. Because like there's just no way that we can talk about this without falling into their frame, which is also just like generally these people, when I say that like their brains just turn off on certain subjects and they've just accepted something to be fundamentally true, they do this thing where it's like, oh well, these 50 words are all dog whistles now, and so I'm not going to use them, and anyone who does needs to stop. And that is a fucking hugely prevalent thing. And I'm not completely against quote unquote language policing. Obviously, there's shit that I absolutely would never stand in my own community or in any space. Is when I'm just hey, if I'm at the farmer's market and there's a certain word I hear someone's, I'd be like, Jesus fucking Christ, are you kidding me? And then I'd like, yeah, obviously, like I could become a woke skull if the right words are said. But there's people who they think that activism and progress and change means fun. They just constantly extending that. And I guess it's because they think that language is the mode of reification of structures, which is not true. It's the other way around. But it's a lot easier just to be told what to say and what to think, I guess, than to actually like do it for yourself. And so the people who did the 8-hour stream canceling Punk Sci, which on if you're
What?
they did a 2-part 8-hour stream on this shit, and it's because like Lumi Ray was it Lumi? I think it was Lumi brought Punk Sci on for a conversation about transhumanism, because Punk Sci is a transhumanist, and a lot of people are like, oh my god, transhumanism is inherently ableist and eugenicist, and that's a bullshit thing to say. Do you think that Silverspook's Neo-Feud is inherently eugenicist because it is cyberpunk? Because guess what, cyberpunk is a part of transhumanism. Transhumanism doesn't mean I am Elon Musk and I want to make it so that only rich people, and mostly probably rich white people as a result of that, are able to modify their bodies and extend their organs and like get brain chips and heart surgeries and all of the different kinds of modifications that they'll want to do as they leave the planet, and as they leave the planet, leave all of us in a pile of radiation and toxicity, which is what they want to do. But to be a transhumanist doesn't mean that you agree with that. But that there's a certain kind of person who bought into this line that, oh well, transhumanism, that's just what that means, and now because somebody told me so, and now a comrade said that they're transhuman and they must be this now, and then like they do like this like agonizing 8-hour fucking circle jerk on it, and it's just like it was terrible. I blocked the fucking person who led that, who led that. Someone said this was the most disingenuous shit, your cancellation of Punk Sci, that I've ever seen. They said that on Twitter, and then that person responded, "Do you even watch my analysis?" And I said, "LOL, analysis blocked." And it's just like, fucking, are you fucking kidding me? I guarantee you that person probably went to college, and now they use the word analysis, but they don't understand what it means, because guess what? You can fucking graduate fucking college without knowing what analysis means. I guarantee you. I know plenty of people who do. And so, yeah, and it's just like, yeah, that's the other thing, is like, what is the university except for training grounds for the professional managerial class? Do you think capitalists want people who can think in the professional managerial class? No. They want you to be able to say, okay, well, you go to this person, and you go to this person, and because what happens when you try to get a hold of the person responsible at AT&T or Verizon? Oh, you go to this person. Oh, you go to this person. That's basically what they're just teaching you to do when it comes to any matter of complexity. Oh, well, we have a department for dealing with that, right? We have a department for dealing with that one. That's nothing that I should have an opinion on. And so it's constant thinking in terms of authority. It's the authority of textbooks. It's the authority of textbooks, or it's the authority of, oh, well, there's this one person in this one office whose job it is to deal with complaints on this kind of issue, or complaints along that kind of issue. That's what we mean by fundamentally liberal, by the way, when we're saying this. It's like this institutional sort of reasoning that's just made for professional managers, or professors or managers. Well, yeah, you and Ann study like neoliberalism at the as sociology students at your university, so it's like oh no, I'm gonna fucking die. I'm out of ammo. I fucked up. Oh fuck. Oh, I'm dead. Oh no. So what were you saying? You've got loads of this stuff. What do you mean by this stuff?
Oh yeah, no, I got pages and pages of evidence of exactly the kind of shit you're talking about, where they hollow out higher education in order to turn it into a vocational training system. And that vocational training system is basically all about recognizing like a maximally but laterally mobile workforce, right? And that's all that they're supposed to be. And they like deliberately work to see that that's going to be the case. And a lot of that does really come down to the stuff that you're talking about with the way that they were talking about rural students in the community college. In fact, they've literally said that in some of our interviews too. But it's like
that. Yeah, this is like it's ableist to say that it's important to read. Like it's the same. It's the same. It's the same kind of reasoning, and I'm like, I'm sorry, but the reason capitalism is bad is because it gets in the way of people's ability to learn how to be literate. And by the way, literacy changes depending on what the kinds of technology are that are available and the level, so like where we're at in civilization. But to say that people just shouldn't have to, no, it's actually a fundamental human prerequisite for being able to understand the world that you live in. And if a person is unable to, incapable of doing so, that's a matter of ability, and that should be like obviously recognized. Like, oh well, shit, you can't. But I'm sorry, like when Vaush said that one time, because after his conversation with Brendan Bathboy, he's like saying that I should have to read as ableist because I've got ADHD. It's like I've got ADHD, and by the way, Vaush comes from like, you know, relative privilege compared to me. I was born under a rock, grew up a feral child. I didn't get formal education until I was 23. Didn't learn how to read until I was 12. And so it's just like these people like always just assume their privilege, and like they have no idea what it means to just be able to read at an upper high school or college like level. They have no idea what that means. But as someone who went from being able to read at a Harry Potter level only to being able to read at like a college level in a space of like 2 years, I can actually like testify from my own standpoint, like the radical transformation of my human consciousness and subjectivity that comes with that. All right. And it's like, it is a big fucking deal being able to understand some of the dynamics of the society that you live in that were beyond your fucking comprehension before you actually expanded your comprehension, because reading comprehension is part of listening comprehension. And so you can talk about the importance of listening to other people, but if you don't have listening comprehension along with reading comprehension, you're only able to listen to sound bites isolated from one another. You're not able to think in a chain. You're not able to think in a syllogism. You're not able to think in a context. You're not able to understand a structure. You're not able to understand shit. And so you're wasting everybody's fucking time.
Yeah. So are you guys saying that people are going to college and can't read, basically?
Yes.
Well, they couldn't read critically for sure. And in fact, I've made the argument before, but it's a philosophical one. It's sort of a trick play that I'm kind of notorious for. But it's like, well, look at it this way. If a person is currently underwater, we would say they can't breathe, right? So if you're dealing with students who are constantly like have their backs to the wall, they have no time to get anything done. Yep. They have all these projects they're supposed to be doing. Can they read? They're supposed to be reading all this stuff. They're never going to read, and we all know it.
And the professors know it, and the professors know that they're going to be rated on Rate My Professor because the student is a customer now because of neoliberalism.
Yeah, no, that's true.
But even just in terms of pure comprehension level.
There are plenty of people who are getting degrees who are probably not much better, if at all better, at reading than they were when they got in.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying they're coming in with high school or like grade 9 reading level.
Yeah, it's probably about grade 9. I would imagine is the worst you're going to get. But then grade 9 is like the average for the American.
Well, and remember those levels go down every year. So college level right now isn't even like most people at college level right now couldn't read Estranged Labor, that essay that I read on stream the other day, right? Most people like they'd just be like, oh my god, it's so hard, and they'd Sparks Notes it. Okay.
Yeah.
And then, by the way, people, and indicative of this anti-intellectualism, which, by the way, I'm very glad you're pointing at the structural issue about time energy. It's not a matter of personal volition and people just being lazy or something like that, or it's not just like, oh, the student is the customer now or whatever. It's not just that. Time, energy, attention, these things are systematically and structurally undermined. Absolutely. But indicative of the culture that creates, and I want to be very clear about this, is whenever you hear a person sort of virtue signal about how they can speed read, you know you've met a person who could not read and understand and tell you what's going on in estranged labor. And so usually they're like, I'm a great reader, I've got a high IQ, and I'm a great reader. It's like, guess what IQ has to do with? That's being able to puzzle solve for the, that's about being a really, like, oh, you're a problem solving employee or you are a problem solving CEO. But in either case, it's about problem solving and nothing more. And it's about the speed at which you're able to do those things. But speed reading is antithetical to thought itself, okay? And every person who's been a mover and shaker on this planet would have told you the same if they had to, but they didn't, at the time that they were alive, it just wasn't a thing. Nobody was like making it out to be like the thing that you should do. But people get this kind of impression that because there's new books every year, in order to get through them, you need to do it as fast as possible. And obviously they want people who can problem solve on their feet and check, on their feet and, go through a manual on the job site and be able to figure out what the right answer is so they can regurgitate it and get things back to going, because that's what they want in the company. But speed reading stacks on top of what you already know. It's not capable of reading things. You cannot speed read something that is fundamentally undermining the stuff that's operating at the unconscious level. You cannot do it. It's not possible. It does not exist. And if you could find me some fucking child like who was like born, like struck by lightning and now they're like Mozart or whatever and they're and they're able to do it, I'd be like, okay, great fucking job, but most people fucking can't. So most people,
man, I want some of that.
Yeah, if you're then the problem with that is people get this idea that because they're not a speed reader and because they don't have a high IQ, they think therefore I can't read. And it's like, no, actually, like real books are meant to be written in complete bewilderment, multiple times. Yeah. And think about it. Where does book literacy actually come from? A culture of people who painstakingly wrote it down over and over and over again just to keep it alive because there was no printing press. So they did it by hand. And then people who would get their hands on this thing, and it's like an heirloom in the family that gets handed down generation after generation. They treat it like it's a treasure, and they read it like 50 times in their life, and they talk about it with everybody in their society who also reads it over and over and over again. And so, yeah, books are meant, like, insofar as it's an important text, you're supposed to be rereading it. And I'm not saying that we're ever going to get back to that, right? It'd be very reactionary. I would say it's reactionary to think that we could get to a point where we ever do that again, right?
No, we couldn't. Socialism.
There's still too many books, right? Like, because that's a matter of technology, and the Gutenberg press undermined at a material level the ability to, because it made it so that it was possible to keep printing cheap junk, right? And so the proliferation of cheap junk has made it so that you could never. But you're saying, but there's too many books now. So and like in a society that has any kind of like freedom, we would fucking hate if everybody was like, well, it's going to be the King James Bible and the Communist Manifesto and Plato's Republic and Wretched of the Earth, and those are going to be the 5 books or 4 books that people have to read and reread and reread and it'd be like, that's an oppressive society to live in. So that's another reason it's not going to happen, because there's also lots of other good books. But you're right. In a socialist society, we fundamentally could read more books more often, and the thing is like we get over this idea that books are consumables that you read and then you get over and then you got to get on to the next one so that you can continue to curate your identity with it, right? Which is where we're currently at.
Yeah.
Most books are just on your bookshelf to say something about you, right? It's like your books say more about you than you have to say about them.
Maybe, but you'd have to find them. I ran out of room for books so long ago that I just have them piled up all over the place. And most of them are supposed to be... They're things I'm supposedly reading that I haven't opened in a while. They just keep stacking up. I thought when I was much younger that speed reading was going to be like the holy grail.
Me too.
For like almost 10 years I was working on it, and it just never worked out. And it wasn't until I was in Philosophy 101 that it really dawned on me that it was never going to work, and what it did and what it was for, and being able to like look down and get a thought very quickly about what you're looking at on the page meant that you weren't digesting it really. You just had to have something in your head already recognizable that you're referencing when you look at it, and that's what I've been trying to do all this time and hadn't realized that meant I wasn't going to get anything out of the Ship of Theseus. You know, you can't just recognize the Ship of Theseus and have something out of that, you know, in 101. And so I was like, oh, this isn't going to work for me in any of the things that I choose to read. And I'd already given up trying to read stuff that I was reading for fun that way, because it wasn't entertaining to read it at that point. So I was reading Tad Williams, and I was like, well, I'm not speed reading this stuff, you know.
Yeah.
What's the point of getting through the adventure quickly?
Yeah, and Beosiful says you don't need to do the reading, you need to do the thinking. It's exposure to the different ideas that's important. And I would mostly agree, but still just having... Oh, by the way, Ann, do you want to jump into cooperative mode, or should I just go into individual player?
I'm just going to individual,
okay.
Probably.
Cool. Because I'm switching to Stardew now, but...
Cool.
Yeah, and by the way, sorry, Chad, if I'm not keeping up with you super well. Posadas is talking about giving up on Capital because I kept having to reread every paragraph 4 times. I was probably doing it right, but way too emotionally exhausting. Anarchist Export says speed reading anything but trash fiction is a waste of time for lack of retention. Sounds good to me. Yes, exactly, Anarchist Tech Support. Exactly. Trash fiction is really good for this, actually. And it's part of the reason I like trash fiction is because it's kind of a good break. Like people, you know, a lot of people who study philosophy, they get really like on their high horse and hate like trash fiction, but trash fiction is made for people in a busy life. You're going to read it, you're going to throw it away. It's like, you know, it's like, it's great. I think it's wonderful. Like Hunger Games, Harry Potter, like level reading is good. It's great. But for the kind that really like builds you, like it forces you through hardship in order to grow. Like you're gonna have to, it's not gonna be easy. And so the other thing is Posadas, in your what you just said though. Yeah, Dan Brown. Yeah, totally. But one of the things about your comment about Capital is like, you know, it's like the first time I tried to read John Stuart Mill was really hard, and then I tried to read Heidegger, The Being in Time, and I gave up. And then I came back to it again later and then gave up again and didn't return to it until I was in a class that made it possible, which was pure chance that, because I tried to go to a university where they taught it and didn't get accepted there. Then I go to a university and it was offered as an honors section, and I had just gotten into the honors college, and then I was like, oh my fucking God, I can actually do this. And it was like fate. And so I finally got to like wrestle with this book that one of the professors I had looked up to kind of used as kind of a reference for a lot of things. And but the thing that I realized was that my reading comprehension had gone up from the previous attempts. And then when I went back to John Stuart Mill was like reading Cosmo.
Yeah, because it is not that difficult.
Right. That this just gets to the like you don't realize how much your reading comprehension goes up until you eventually go back to that thing that defeated you. Yeah. Or also one of the other things that happens on those really difficult things is that like you don't realize that you got anything out of it, and then you come back to it later and you realize, oh shit, I was getting way more out of that than I thought I did, because I've actually
my favorite is when you think that you're just like lost on it, and you're like, whatever, man, this is some really weird stuff, and then somebody like brings something up, and then you respond to them using information that's out of that book. And then suddenly you realize that without even knowing it, you've digested all of that stuff, and you really did catch up, and you really do know what the hell you're talking about. Yeah. Those moments are just incredible.
Yes.
Yeah, they are pretty good. I'm sort of having that with Marx and Capital. Got to be 10 years ago that I went through it the first time, and I didn't even get through the whole thing because I was like, "What? This is Chinese." And then now I'm just basically my 5th pass, doing some version of a Capital or somebody's version of Capital, and I'm finally starting to get the things that I couldn't grasp the first time, and realizing that there were parts where like, oh yeah, I actually did, I did kind of get this. Mm-hmm. I did internalize it.
Right. And it's it's the thing is the life of the mind versus the life of the body, and you're Swolitarian, so you definitely know about the life of the body because you're a personal instructor for a lot of people on these things. But they are analogous sometimes, and working out your reading comprehension levels is no joke. And you see significant gains later without even realizing it. And it's kind of like, Ann and I were doing the workout that you recommended us like for a couple of months while we had access to the rec center and before the COVID shit. And like seeing the gains that I was getting like in my posture, just walking around and stuff like that. Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I missed it.
Glad it worked.
Well, I mean, it worked. We're not doing it right now, but I miss it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I miss the gym too.
Yeah.
I didn't think I would. I thought finally I'm out.
I like, and I want to say this for everyone because, I've always struggled with working out, always struggled with it. What I like about and I never respected weightlifting because it's such a bro-ish thing, and I've never really liked like overly masculine things. But when I found out that like, when you laid out your argument, your actual reasoning for why weights are superior to all of the other modes, and like you use like a full-on, like you're using studies, you're using examples from podcasts and from other things that you're using. This is like, oh, like that baseline is the most important thing. That base strength is the most important thing. Yeah. And so even if you only have like a half hour a day, if you're building up that baseline, it's more important than anything else you can do. And the other thing is like limited time, limited energy, because I'm constantly thinking in those terms because, student or working or just whatever, you have to kind of think in those terms. It's like when it's like, for me, it's like if it's going to require an hour and a half or 2 hours, then it's like you're fucked. But if you actually if you can do just as much or more in a half hour, because weights are so much more intense, and so you're concentrating that intensity, which makes you at that baseline more strong, and then you're able to do all of the other things in life better. Like, holy shit, I needed to hear that because I never heard that, because I never had a formal education in my life, and I never had a pure personal trainer who, well, first of all, I never had a personal trainer, but I never had a coach. But if I had,
most personal trainers won't tell you that the way I did.
No, and so go ahead and share that in the chat if you want to.
Yeah, I can find that video, because
that was life changing for me, and it has, I think, like, and if it's like after you try working out like every New Year's and you keep giving up. After going to the gym the first 3 times, and you try a different mode or try a different style of workout every single time, and it just keeps failing, and you lose trust and hope for like all of the nutritional and exercise like information that people give you, and then all of a sudden someone comes along, it's like, whoa, like there's a real argument here. It's not just like willy-nilly, like whatever. It's not just all of this conflicting information, and like CrossFit is literally inferior to just the good old fashioned bench like press. It really actually is, and for facts, reasons, and evidence. Like you're not just making that shit up, and I love it. And the thing is like you can always expand off of it, but when you're talking about the baseline, that shook me. So anyway, I'm just putting that out there for anybody else who's not like seen. This is just my big plug for your stuff, because I haven't made that plug before. So
all right, there it is in chat.
Hell yeah.
Strength. Do your squats, your deadlifts, your bench press, your overhead press, and your rows, and that's all you need, fam.
That's it. Straight up.
Or your chin-ups. You can do chin-ups too.
Yeah, and if you like, oh, I'm not trying to be a meathead. I just want to be a climber or a gymnast or whatever. Still applies. It's still true.
Yeah. Good for you.
Like everything else is an aesthetic thing that they're just using to appeal to you, because at the baseline they know that you don't want to be a meathead. But it doesn't matter if you're a meathead or a gymnast. You still need that core strength.
Yeah, the most efficient thing you can do with your time in the gym, or with your body really, is to get it fit, is to get it stronger. And the most efficient way to do that is to pick up a barbell, get under it, and go in, do a weight that feels kind of heavy, and then go in every other day after that and add 5 pounds to that barbell until you can't anymore. So you're forcing yourself to progress, no matter what.
I'm a fan of a good hip bridge. What's that mean, Punk Sai?
Oh,
What's a
Oh yeah, I didn't mention that. Sorry, glute thrust. Yeah, you definitely want to do a glute thrust or hip thrust.
Ann and
That
I were
also.
doing. We were doing those too.
That's what I'm doing at home now because
I really miss the gym.
Master Chi says resistance training shouldn't take that long. Yeah, it doesn't. That's the nice thing. You're fucking in and out and on with your day. So, like, we get this idea that, like, strength training means being there for 2 hours, 4 hours, because you see these guys whose, like, life is being in the gym. But it's like, they're not doing strength training. They're fucking probably in competitions. You know, that's different. They're strength training for a competition. They're not strength training for all life, you know. And so I never knew that.
Anarchist Tech Support said endurance is important, but that's cardio audiobook time. Endurance is important, but the nice thing about strength training is that it actually improves your endurance and stamina without doing any actual endurance and stamina training. The shitty thing about doing endurance,
the other way around, yeah.
And not true the other way around. If you the more, let's say, jogging you do or biking you do, the weaker you'll actually get muscle wise, strength wise. But you will actually improve your endurance if you do strength training. I mean, it won't be a lot. I mean, you're not going to be able to run a marathon by itself, but you will actually improve your cardiovascular system doing it that way, which is a nice little bonus. And you know your balance, your mobility, your posture, your flexibility, your coordination, your agility. All of these things go up with strength training.
To me, like, I just wish more than anything I'd gotten a good lecture from Swole, like, when I was, like, I don't know, early on. That would have been really nice.
Yeah.
Swole would have wished he had that lecture from Swole 10 years before. You know how much time I spent injuring myself and doing stupid, like, I didn't know what I was doing. Even when I went to school for it, I didn't learn the good shit.
You didn't even learn it when you were just going to school for it. You just said that? Holy shit.
Yeah. Yeah, I had to go outside basically. Like they only gave me like glimpses of what I needed. I mean, I got some good stuff at school, but the real shit I had to find out for myself. They wouldn't teach that. They wouldn't teach that strength. You have to. They're still kind of in a mode that's wrong. Let's just say.
Cool. So that was a big aside about fitness. I admit to not having kept up fully with chat. I don't know. Have you, Swole, Terry? Is there anything else we want to address in there before we go back, wrap back around, and potentially finish up whatever's in the title of this talk?
Posadus Plebe says, I had a similar epiphany studying psychology because understanding why you do the things you do and why we suffer the way we do suddenly gives a base to finding a meaningful and equanimous life. Equanimous?
Aquinas is actually a medieval philosopher, so... I'm just kidding. I mean, it's true that that's who that is, but that has nothing to do with what they're saying. Yeah. I'm gonna fucking hit the mines in this game. Go get me some quality iridium ore. Nash Chi says exactly in the Twitch chat. Resistance training shouldn't take that. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, and it's just like, you don't want to live in the gym. You're not trying to be a gym rat. How fucking nice to find out you don't have to.
Yeah.
Like, for me, it's just like, tell me what I have to do. I want necessary and sufficient conditions for basic health, and I want to be on my way, because I'm not trying to live my life here and do this all the time. And people don't think in terms of necessary and sufficient conditions because they're not thinking philosophically. And so Swole finally did it for me, thank God. But I don't have access to weights here, and what I ended up doing during COVID is just going on fucking long-ass walks. I've done like 17,000 step days a few times in the last couple weeks.
Oh, see, I started eating pie and drinking copiously.
Nice.
Good job.
It's disgusting. It's disgusting.
I'm proud of you. Yeah.
Proud of you.
Wow.
All right. Okay. So Is that debrief over?
How do we bridge that back to Mexie and Vaush?
No clue.
What's the bridge? What's the angle?
What's the segue? The necessary segue from what you said? Do you want me to do it, or shall someone else?
Do it.
All right. We got off on working out because we were first talking about reading and the importance of reading. And I'm sure that Vaush and Mexie both read. And I'm sure that...
I don't think Vaush reads that much.
Well, I think he performed...
Anymore.
Here's the thing. Is he anti-intellectual? Is that a thing? Is that... Because I got accused of calling him that. Yeah, because someone was saying that he's an intellectual. He's definitely not an intellectual. Is he anti-intellectual? Well, here's the thing. It doesn't fucking matter. He performs, like ContraPoints, anti-intellectualism. He performs it by kind of acting like you don't need it. And I'm sorry, but the conditions for understanding where to apply energy when you're doing your normal life, like cost benefit analyses and figuring out like what to do in terms of practice. What? It's 11:50 a.m. in the game, and I've been standing here waiting for Pam this whole time, and she never came to the bus stop. Pam! Where the fuck is Pam? Does she take Thursdays off? I don't think so. Hold on, I'm gonna go to Pam's house and see what she lives in a trailer. I'm gonna go see what Pam is. Pam drunk? She's a drunk who lives in a trailer. In this game, it's just the way it is. All right, Pam, what's going on over here? She's not even in her house. I mean, I'm in her house and she's not home. Why doesn't she doesn't lock her door?
She snuck around you to get to the bus.
Shit. I was standing in front of the bus though. I'm going to go restart the day, restart the day, and hopefully she'll be back the next day because I want to go to the mines. But anyway, because one of my big goals is to get to the level 100 in the Skull Cavern, which is not easy, and I'm not trying to do it the cheaty way. People cheat. They just buy a ton of staircases and just run, I'm trying to get... It's kind of addicting just trying to do it the right way. But anyway, okay. Tying it back around. He performs anti-intellectualism sometimes, which can have negative downstream effects that maybe aren't being contended with. But then again, I don't think he does that all the time, and I'm not going to just say he's necessarily an anti-intellectual because he does that. Because I've thought about this a little bit. But, he seems to do a lot of research. But it's kind of like, it's very like undergrad level sociology. Like, I'm just going to find a study that agrees with me and then constantly assert back to it in arguments because that's all I need. But that's his the data doesn't agree with you on co-ops. It's just like, all right, well, the data...
Sargon of Akkad, except he actually reads it.
Yeah, exactly. He actually reads it. So that is the better thing about him is that he actually reads it. But the reason that can only go so far...
Sargon of Akkad, though.
It's still to cite an existing study from current society to say that this co-op proves the other person wrong falls into the trap of you're not thinking about how but the historical conditions being fundamentally different and generalizing co-ops over the mode of commodity exchange that currently exists. How would that change things? It doesn't deal with that. And you can't. There's all these bigger things that he's not able to deal with. He's same thing with the Biden stuff. So he's able to intersubjectively, about as good as you can get, argue that harm reduction would be achieved with Biden. But he's only able to think about short-term harm reduction, and he's not able to run that up against, and I've talked to him about this, but he doesn't want to debate my brother on it, who my brother really wants to debate him on it. I would rather he debated my brother than me because I'm more of an agnostic and my brother's more of a no. Burn Your Bus was the right... Whatever. Anyway, my brother's not the brainlet take version of they're the same kind of position, or you can't tell someone in my position because I am a rape survivor that it's not, which is fine, but it's not that position is what I'm saying. And the fact that he hasn't talked to somebody who has who does debate. My brother does debates and is actually ready for this, but he would rather talk to people like Joshua for Congress or whatever that, you know, he'd rather talk to people like this who, is it just because they will make him look better? I hope not, because that would be grifty. I think that he just doesn't take smaller creators seriously, and he thinks that he's tired of having that conversation. But the thing is like, what I'm getting at is that he's not able to take into account historical context on these things. Like, historically speaking, the situation right now is different than it was 5 years ago when it comes to whether to vote or not. Like it's just like you're acting like history doesn't change and our situation isn't different. Like, we're in the middle of a global pandemic. Like, if there's ever going to be a time to fundamentally alter the status quo and to circumnavigate the two-party system that was fundamentally built with the purpose of dividing the working class and fostering racism, if we're not going to do it now, well, I don't know that we can. And like, okay, maybe we can't. And you know, maybe he's right. And maybe he's right that we have to wait 30 fucking years for the next Bernie to come along. But, you know, I hope not. I really fucking hope not. That's really and the thing is he's not able to take into account what are the negative downstream ways that you can blow back against your short-term gains because of an entire generation of babies, or, you know, like 5-year-olds, 10-year-olds who saw Trump as like the worst villain of all time and now think that goodness and dignity and morality has been restored because of Biden, and now they think that is the left. That becoming hegemonic for an entire generation, you're able to measure the short-term positive effects of Biden against that longer-term negative effect. Are you really able to? I'm very curious, as someone who just doesn't know very much about epistemology, but just from a basic, like, how do we know stuff, like, position, that one seems a lot more complicated than it's being made out to be. So this is just one of the ways where, you know, he's like, but I'm right, and Mexie's being like, but what if you're not, and sometimes you just need to listen. It's like, well, yeah. he becomes a little overconfident sometimes. So it's not that. So here in this conversation, we've generally taken a side, even though I don't think any of us are like riding with Biden right now, right? We're all like basically on his side, even though he's fundamentally wrong about this thing. If he's not wrong about his position, it's at least way more complicated than he makes it out to be. That's a serious issue. And then he's like, but I want to win. And it's like, yeah, well, if winning means calling disenfranchised voters names for not capitulating to the Democratic Party, which has been a mode of the Democratic Party now for 120 years. If just calling people names is what you're going to do now, then you're not a populist anymore. He said, isn't it great to be on the side of populism? He said that about Bernie, and it was right. He was right. It is great to be on the side of populism. But if you're going to go around and shame 75% of the country who won't vote for Biden, 75% of the country ain't going to vote for Biden. If you're going to go around and shame those people, especially a lot of those people who are way more disenfranchised than he is, and have, you know, man, I think that's just bad strategy, bad optics. And it's one of those things that I would be willing to talk to him about it, but I would prefer that he talk to my brother about it straight up.
Yeah.
But that does tie back into, there you go. I managed to segue it back. So there you have it.
Wow.
Nailed it. You fucking nailed it.
Yeah. I hate the idea of doing debates. Who has time for that? I don't have time for the shit I'm doing now. So I like people who are already on the left. We have enough problems.
Did you just say you like them, Swole?
I love debates. Because if you have a good debate with two people who are more good faith, or at least close to good faith, then, you can hear the strengths and weaknesses of the things you believe and the things you don't believe. Lots of times I've been swayed or had things clarified, but because of a debate.
Right. There's a lot of people who just believe that the debate mode is just for people who already believe what they believe. And if you do a sociological analysis of it, it is the tendency that people are just going to walk away believing what they already believed more. But just because it's a tendency doesn't mean that there aren't a lot of people who don't fall into that tendency. And a lot of people who aren't decided on what they believe need to see things play out between good faith actors who disagree with one another. And, other times it really is kind of a waste of time. But
or even if the people debating, even if they're in totally bad faith, the strength. I mean, they're going to live or die on the strength of their arguments. So I mean, like the Lauren Southern Destiny debate, for example. I mean, lots of her fans saw that debate and realized how fucking terribly she did, and switched out of being alt-right because of it.
But do we really want them?
Caleb turned out pretty cool.
Yeah.
But he said he was alt-light though, I think. But
I mean, so was I.
I think a lot of people were. Yeah, a lot of people were. You were alt-light?
Yeah, I would say that.
Whoa. Wait, so were you listening to Sargon and who would you identify with, like, YouTube-wise?
Well, first of all, I have to say that this is not news if you saw certain streams where I've talked about it. I specifically talked to Faraday Speaks and America. So after the PewDiePie pipeline video, brought on American Johnson and Faraday Speaks. Anne, were you there for that one?
Most of it, yeah. That was like a year ago.
I think you might have had to leave at some point in that
I did,
conversation. Yeah. But there were a couple other people there who ended up arguing against. There was a person of color who ended up sitting there arguing against EJ's take about just listening to people of color, and then EJ kept arguing with the person of color about it, which was hilarious.
Yeah.
But anyway, it just gets back to the contradiction that we keep talking about. But Faraday Speaks or Caleb, pretty cool dude from what I can tell. Has, like, for those who don't know, like a story about like leaving the. Anyway, I talked about my own background, and so it's like, no, there are things that certain people are able to speak to who are probably alt-right grifters that are real fucking things, and if the left isn't able to talk about those things, then those people become the de facto go-to for talking about those things, and that's a problem, because if a person is like fundamentally like irritated or concerned or having to deal with something, and there's only like someone else talking about that, then it's like, okay. Before I studied philosophy, I had seen some Molyneux videos, and I couldn't tell if he was full of shit or not. I'll put it that way. And on a lot of things, because also I hadn't watched a ton of his shit. He has so much stuff because he like puts out stuff like every day. But the first thing I saw was him talking about Harry Potter and using what he called it a material analysis of Harry Potter. And it's like it was funny because like the material analysis of Harry Potter, if you take to be true that there's no such thing as magic, it instantly leaves you with the whole story is actually really funny, because it means the only thing that's real is that he lives under the stairs and is being abused, and he's invented the rest of this in his imagination to cope with the problem, which is actually a pretty like smart psychoanalytic take, right? Like that's clever. And so shit like that. And then if all you've seen is like the super performative empty woke kind of stuff, and think that that's the left, then like these people are going to be able to speak to that. And people love on the left. They love to say like the SJW cringe reels are just like cherry picked, like the same three people over and over again, played on repeat, so that people just think that that's all activists. But it's like, oh yeah, well they've clearly not done a lot of organizing, because there's a lot of that shit. There's a lot of that shit just in fucking regular spaces in normal everyday life. Like the person we just like this one person, like notorious in certain spaces that I've been in before, who got a professor to cancel a letter writing campaign to children or families in cages right now at the border. Okay, now follow me with this. The professor in a sociology class was going to get the entire class to do a letter writing campaign just to check, hey, how's it going? Like, what are the conditions there like? Is there anything you need? What can we do? Because this is obviously like how we find out about a lot of the inhumane treatment that's going on at the border in the concentration camps, right? And this person who's like the most, like when we talk about like this toxic mode, like they just embody it in like almost everything they say and do in these spaces, and they dominate these spaces and hog so much space, and they are marginalized in a way that we won't say, because that would but the point is like they tend to speak for their community, but like their community, like they're representatives of other people who are there like rolling their eyes and face palming like, oh my god, it's this person going off again. And it's like, that way, if you're just online and you don't organize very much in real America, and you just think that like that's a rarity, I'm sorry, you weren't at Occupy. I'm sorry, like that you were fucking lucky, or you had your head up your ass, or you just can't tell when this is happening. But anyway, that person was like, oh no, this is like white knighting, this is like white savior complex, you're just tokenizing these people at the border. And literally the professor fucking rolled over for her and just went along with it. And they literally they canceled the fucking writing campaign.
Yeah, like,
she took this as a win. I'm sorry, but and she's just one example. I wrote it all down like the other day because like that person that I was in the comment sections with was like this stuff isn't real, this stuff isn't a problem, and all this stuff. Like these identity reductionists who like fucking like run the left these days. Like, oh, this isn't a real problem. It's like
sorry,
so
where have you been?
I just wrote out like I just wrote out like the first like 20 cases that came to mind of different people doing similar things in spaces, whether it's the DSA National Convention, whether it's like there was 30 fucking people of color and maybe me and like one other white person at a group. Like we always are there. This one person fucking like the conversation was like about race, and this white woman shows up and she happened to say guys when she was expressing a concern about something. And instead of responding to that, this fellow NB just fucking goes off about saying guys to a fucking boomer. And I was just like, oh my fucking God, you know how much courage it took that boomer to step foot in this fucking room, and then you just fucking like woke signaled over this shit for like 10 fucking minutes to shame them? Like, shut the fuck up. And then this person goes off about privilege all the fucking time, but has like all of this old family wealth in their family. And then of
course.
Yeah, it just blows my fucking mind. But, you know, because they have like, you know, they're at a couple of intersections, they get to like speak authoritatively in those spaces. And, you know, there's like 3 people nodding, a bunch of people kind of watching, and some of them looking all kind of like, oh fuck, what the fuck is this shit? And guess what? I kept coming to those meetings, and a lot of those people didn't, and I saw them fade away, and that woman never came back. So, you know, it's just like, you know, I just used 2 examples. How many fucking more do I have to give? See, I have a fucking list. I could do a 12-hour stream on it, but I'm not a fucking like person who's trying to make all of their content about this stuff either. I think that there's, you know, sure, this gets at a deadlock on the left, but there's bigger, like harder deadlocks on the left that aren't really being dealt with. Right. So, and I'm trying to work through those ones.
Position anyway, like how can they think that that's what's going on? Look at how much of the like what happened with the transformation of the skeptics on YouTube turning into the anti-SJW force on YouTube. If they didn't think that the SJWs those people are yelling at existed, where did they think that came from? Like, how could that be what it is?
Well, I mean, okay, at a gut level, it makes sense that, you know, there's a fucking weirdo for everybody, and you can find this extreme for everybody, and everybody has their extremes, right? Like, you can definitely find extreme right wingers, you can find extreme left wingers. So people just think they just kind of both sides it away. Everyone's got their fucking nuts, but like the nuts over here, these ones are on the right side, and these nuts over here, they're on the wrong side, and because the nuts over here are fucking walking around with tiki torches, and so it's a lot more obvious. But like these other, the thing about the people on our side, or ostensibly the people on our side, the biggest issue with it is that for a lot of people, they're not able to really sort it out. Like, to them, they feel like there might be something wrong, but they just kind of get told like they need to, like, they can't really have an opinion on this, and so they just stop. And it, you know, and it's, but the thing is like, yes, it's true that every normie fandom has its own cancel culture, and so the cancel culture is just really an online phenomenon. Even though that's true, normies don't tend to use like moral political categories for it, and if they do it in a very superficial way, but they're not doing it in a community where everybody is there for moral political reasons. And when you do it and you've got it couched in moral political reasons, it's a lot easier for people to kind of be like, well, that seems to make sense, and it's the same logic I've already applied in this other area of my life, and so intersectionally speaking, I should just apply that same logic over here. It's like, no, you're talking about a fundamentally different like axis of oppression, you're talking about a fundamentally different issue, and so it's actually not the same thing that you learned in middle school about how to deal with this one thing, right? Yeah. Like disability is a really great example of it, right? Like, there's a handful of people who've made themselves as spokespersons for every fucking issue on it, when it comes to disability, and then they don't know how to deal with someone like Vaush, who's like, but I can say this word because I am autistic and I have ADHD, and it's like, And so that's the logic, right? So he's transplanting a logic. What's the logic? It's a logic of, well, the community of interest, gets to use the word that gets weaponized against them. And so people already accepted that with the N word. People already accepted that with the B word. So then they just start.
Well, I think Vaush kind of says it ironically. Like, I think he knows.
Yeah, but it's a good example of how these logics get, So I'll grant you that, but then say that's kind of like what I'm getting at, though. And so anyway, but there's a bunch of people in the disability community. They really couldn't deal with that. They really don't know how to respond to that. And at the same time, they do make themselves, because they're like, all of my activism fundamentally comes down to this thing, because my identity is being this marginalized category. My whole life is not having the spoons to deal with shit. It's like. Then okay, well, now I'm going to speak for people who for other disabled people. It's like, okay, well, as a person with ADHD and as a person with bipolar and as a person who's like two of their siblings are like, no, you've got autism, you're just highly functioning. I get to say that you don't fucking speak for the community. The community is just you and a bunch of friends who want to be activists, who've like made yourselves the spokespersons of this shit. And your 8-hour stream you did about punk sci is fucking bullshit. You can fuck off with that. But and yeah, Lampe, autism. You've got autism, and so it's just like. Does the person who did the 80-hour stream canceling fucking punk sci for being a transhumanist, like, do they get to speak for you? No, but they act as though, oh, well, you're enabled, so you don't get to have an opinion. You just have to be a good ally of me because you raid me sometimes. And it's like, I don't know you from fucking Adam, and everyone I fucking know has autism these days. And guess what? Like, I don't fucking know you. Like, but you don't get your position is not the end of the story. That's really what it boils down to. People like still have to think for themselves, and that is the ultimate thing that like I really hope Mexie gets it. Like you still have to think for yourself. And like, just because the professor was scared of like the bad reviews or the bad hype doesn't mean that it was right to stop the letter writing campaign, okay? But like, and that person, they think they did an activism. They think that was a praxis.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing.
Jesus.
It's depressing.
It's depressing, and if you hear like the anger and resentment in my voice, like, look, 8 years of organizing. And these people, it's like, I'm not going to go through my personal life history, but these people are all over it. Everyone has to deal with this shit. And most people, before they decide to just roll over and just go with it, like, they're usually kind of critically aware of it. And so, yeah, if we're not speaking to it, if we allow it to fester within our communities, if we decide to delete a video because someone called us out for using the word lunatic in that video, and then we make a whole video making fun of people who would have said like, oh no, I'm being attacked like unjustifiably, and oh, it's actually easy to do this thing, to delete and to just like, apologize. It's really easy. When you do that, you don't realize what kind of a toxic fucking environment it creates in your community, where now all of a sudden every attention-seeking person who's ultimately like there for all of the wrong reasons, they're going to look for the next thing to problematize, and you're going to be so careful talking for the rest of your fucking life that you're never really going to say much into anything, right? And you're going to spend all of this time, fell asleep in the line. Oh, look, I was just getting down to where all the iridium is too. But anyway, it's just like, it's heartbreaking because it's like, in that video with the person's like, I said lunatic and I was wrong. And these people were right for calling me out on it. And, because it's a slur for people with bipolar, like, oh my fucking God. It's just like, they literally are like, my Patreon went up. Like, this is like a good in every way. Like, people felt more included. It's like, oh my fucking God. If anybody ever fucking like, look, it's nice. It's a nice opinion. It's a nice opinion. If you don't like, if you're personally offended by this, go fucking follow their streams and leave my streams alone. People like still come up and they're like, oh my God, you're saying smooth brained and I just can't. And it's just like, fine, there's content elsewhere. But I have a fundamentally different theory of social change, and I have a fundamentally different theory of language. And you don't speak for the communities that you're not the only person who gets to speak for the communities that you're talking about. And I have enough people from those communities in my personal life. If you don't trust my ability to like talk about this thing, then you can just go away. I don't need to gain your trust. I'm not interested in your, like when Mexie's like, speed moves at the speed of trust. Trust moves at change moves at the speed of trust. Is that what she says?
I don't remember.
Yeah, I think so.
It's like, okay, but I'm sorry, I can't trust people in an environment where we're incentivizing their infinite nitpicking. There's always going to be a new thing for them to nitpick, and you're going to keep rolling over, but at the end of it, you're not going to be able to talk to normal people at all. You're not going to be able to. And even if someone's fundamentally right, wow, that's the thing that you're saying is actually couched in this assumption that the able body is superior to the non-able body, sorry, but like everyone fucking knows. Sorry, like Punk Sai was getting shit for like saying that, you know, sometimes people can actually like have their eyesight returned, and there are people online right now who say, oh, but you're erasing blind culture when you do that. That's real, y'all. Okay, and there's people who are just like, okay, well, I'm not blind, I can't have an opinion on it. Yeah, you fucking can. Say this. I'm sorry, like, your blind culture is real, and that's a precious thing, but guess what? Eyesight's also really fucking great if you're able to achieve it, if someone's able to return it to you, or if you're privileged enough to have been born with it, your community that is based around this being a shitty thing, being blind, if this eradicates the purpose of having the community in the first place, well, then, you know, it wouldn't be the first time science and technology and now capitalism as well has erased a culture. And guess what? It's constantly erasing cultures. And if you think that you can maintain your culture by just like saying no to technological progress, then I don't know, but like seems kind of like a losing strategy to me. And you can say that, and that's okay to say that. And if somebody is going to fucking get their panties tied up in a bunch because you said it, like, okay, well, I'm sorry, you're very sensitive and you don't like being disagreed with, and you like running around authoritatively scolding and telling creators what they have to do as though you're a fucking family member. No, not even a family member, as though you're fucking like their ride or die comrade who's like been organizing with for 10 years and now you're saying it. That's what you're acting like, but it's not true. These are strangers online. Mm-hmm. And by the way, the person who we're talking about who got that letter writing campaign canceled, right? Like, that person runs around and speaks for their marginalized category all of the time. And they're very online. Is that person able to speak for their community? I mean, they get, you know, they're of it. They have an opinion of it. But if you're one of their friends online who's like, well, my one friend who's in that now thinks it's not true. Well, I'm sorry, you haven't been going to the meetings where you see how other people that person claims to represent stop coming to the meetings because of that person. You haven't seen that. I'm sorry. I have.
Oh my god. Well, gang, it's 5 a.m. for me.
Whew.
I gotta go to bed.
Cool. And what time is it for you?
3.
Jeez Louise.
I don't care.
Jeez
What do you
Louise.
think? Like,
Oh, hold on. Uber Connor's like, you have your panties tied, to be honest. Yeah, they always do this. Oh, now you're upset because... Yeah, I'm sorry. 8 fucking years, motherfucker. 8 fucking years trying to organize, stupid motherfucker. Fuck you.
And look at how easy it is to underline it all.
You stupid piece of shit. Fuck you. Yeah, it's a fucking vent session, motherfucker. Go watch the rest of my content. How often do I do this? Almost fucking never. Because people like you are a fucking energy sap. You fucking undermine the left in every way, shape, and form, and you are the reason that Donald Trump won. You are the reason that the alt-right exists. It's you piece of shit. Shut the fuck up with your fucking simpering, virtue signaling bullshit. Oh, go be empathetic somewhere else. Block that piece of shit. Fuck you. Seriously. Oh, you've got your panties tied up in a... Yeah, guess what? I don't normally go off on these rants because guess what? I don't want my content to revolve around this. But guess what? It's a fucking vent session that you came to. Some people make all of their content about vent sessions and sitting around talking about how much better they are than other people. Go watch the rest of my fucking last year of content and tell me how much of that you see. Fucking shut the fuck up, you stupid motherfucker. Oh, I'm just watching all of this trying to understand the point of it. Oh, you didn't get the point? I'm sorry that your brain is so fucking smooth. Those just... deflected right the fuck off the surface of it because nothing's gonna get deeper than the surface of it. Fucking, you're wasting your time. What are you doing online? Fucking just go walk off a fucking cliff. Seriously.
ooh. Ooh.
Spicy.
Seriously, no. Well, guess what? Which would cause more harm? You continuing to exist or the left never winning? Because you don't care about climate change and you don't care about World War III and you don't care. You fundamentally do not care about organizing the international working class. You have no interest in it. If you seriously are like, well, I just don't see what the problem is, huh? You just have your panties tied up in a bunch too. Yeah, that's a fucking, that is exactly the fucking mode that these fucking Canadian like these Canadian like content creators all fucking have, isn't it? Oh, I just think dirtbags are psyops. It's like, look, I love them. I really do. I literally watch their stuff. I'm friends with a bunch of people who like just like love them. But like, if you don't see the problem with the with some of these dynamics that are fostering, like you don't see how like someone creating their identity around shutting down like letter writing campaigns to concentration camps, if you don't fucking like get like how that kind of shit undermines, or if people like their inability to think about an issue because oh well, someone scolded me once and now I can't think about this issue for myself. If you don't understand how that undermines the left, if you don't see how winning 1 out of 1,000 people with that mode alienates the other 999 people, which is the current situation, if you don't see that as a fucking problem, like, oh fuck. I would rather Nazis are better than you, because guess what? Most people hate Nazis, but most people also fucking hate you, but they won't say it. Because people like you enter communities and suck the life out of those places, and then people stop showing up, and I've seen it happen over and over and over again, and it tanks them. But it's true. But okay, now that I've said that, I will say I do have my panties tied in a bunch. And I am wearing, and I'm probably actually wearing panties, but you know.
Probably.
Yeah. I mean, I do wear panties, so, but you know, whatever. I mean, it's true. I do have my panties in, but it's just like, fuck. Seriously, they always do this. Oh, but you're the one who's... yeah, but we're talking about how this shit is like an incessant and constant like problem everywhere. This is, they love to deny the existence of these things. So you go off on a bunch of like, anecdotal shit because obviously like they're not going to like take like more seriously like the arguments themselves. And so you use like, well, I've got a fucking 8 years of this shit, like, and I can like start listing off examples. I could do a 12-hour stream on it. And they're like, yeah, but what's the point? Oh, cool. Glad you just proved your inability to comprehend basic things that fall outside of your immediate, like, well, I've already figured it all out. I'm already right. I don't need to learn anything. I'm sorry, but that's the other thing. That's part of the reason that we see this huge divide between the woke scolds and most dirtbags is like someone like Vaush admits that he might be wrong about something. Someone like Vaush, even though I disagree with him on some things, obviously, we've already talked about that. Even though he disagrees, he says he might be wrong a lot of the time, and he does change. And he can tell you how he's changed. And he can tell you the reasons for why he's changed, not just because someone in his community gave him shit for it. He can actually tell you the fucking reasons that he's changed his position. And it's like, but then people always try to like both sides it out of existence as, oh, it's not a problem. It's like, yeah, well, one side is constantly being more generous. One side is constantly being more, you know what? You do your thing over there and we'll do our thing over here. But there's another side that's constantly being like, this isn't a real problem. It's just not a thing. And you're actually not needed. And do we really need you on the left? Let's have whole fucking 8-hour conversations about how we might not need you over here on the left. It's just like, do we really need this person? Do we really need that person? That's our fucking mode. And it's just like, Jesus fucking Christ. How do we do this? How often do we do this? Have you ever seen me do this on my fucking platform? No! You've never seen it. All right, maybe. And the thing is like, I normally don't turn on my camera and talk when I'm fucking mad. And I wasn't as mad as I am now when I did it today. Oh shit. Yeah. Anyway. Tied up panties. Yeah, they're in my butthole too. I've got tied up panties up my butt, and I'm obviously like, I'm just here to hear myself talk at this point, so I'll stop.
This was. Oh, that's good. That was like Vaush's rant last year that he got in trouble for.
Yeah, straight up. Because when he said, I'll be the one who's there digging your graves, your mass graves, like he said that to trans people, like meaning like there were a few super sensitive trans people in his audience that were raising ruckus and obviously trying to speak for all the other trans people in his audience who disagree with those people. And he's just like, At the end of the day, it's gonna like, yeah, I'm a strong, you know, cis het white privileged like male. I'll be the one that digging the ditches, and like people are like, see, Vaush wants to bury trans people in a ditch, and it's like, once again, these people proving their inability to follow a basic chain of thought. Which means that they're probably at a third grade level reading, you know. And to be fair, they actually might be 10-year-olds, and that's why I'm so like careful in my woke school versus dirtbag video I just put out. Is like, we might be talking to children. We might be, like, literally. You don't know.
It is weird to think
but a
that
lot of them are
YouTube
fucking
audience-
30 though. What?
It is weird to think that the YouTube audience is actually pretty fucking young.
Yeah.
But I don't know how young our audience is. It's hard to say.
I don't know. I tend to attract a more mature demographic, and yes, I will toot my horn for that because it takes a lot of fucking work to not constantly go off on these kind of rants. Okay, like it actually requires. It's fucking hard. Guess what? It's emotional labor. It really fucking is because it's so taxing, and it actually gets in the way of the rest of my creative flow. And I can't just fucking make content all the time because. You can't do that, like unless you're gonna make all your content about going off like this. Like it gets in the way of like an educational environment, you know, like it really does. You can't just always be in this mode. I was going somewhere with that. I totally lost it. But anyway,
Your rant bumped you up to almost 40 viewers.
Hey.
I have 32 years old, but I have the maturity of a 5-year-old. Hangovers, like, you good, dude? Yeah. No, not at all. Absolutely not at all. If you're good, then you're not fucking thinking. Welcome to the club. Most people aren't, apparently. But that's ableist. Some people literally can't think. Okay, yeah, well, obviously not you, motherfucker. Yeah. Jeez.
All right, I gotta go to bed.
Yeah, you better get out of here before we're all canceled. All right.
All right.
A while ago.
It's been good. See you, fam.
Yeah, it's been good. All right, take care.
Bye.
Yeah. So the long and short of it is we're trapped in a deadlock, and there you go. Now you fucking know. That's a part of it. There are way bigger issues, by the way. And that is something that people say whenever this shit's like really going on, and they'll usually try to act like this shit's not really a problem, and then if you like start showing instances of why it's a problem, then they turn it into, oh well, it's just not a very big issue right now, and it's like, or why are we focusing on it right now? And it's like, well, because sometimes you need to, sometimes it's appropriate, probably. Like you can't just not ever talk about it. Then again, to make all your content about it, that would probably be, not great. But yeah, but guess what? When nobody else will talk about it, you do create the conditions where all of a sudden you've given the right wingers like free license to just make the whole left look like it's just a bunch of liberals, which it's not. The left is almost everybody, or at least potentially, and should be thought of as almost everybody. It's pure ideology. And thanks for the follow. Yeah, that's stupid. See, look, I got 48 fucking people watching now because that's the thing. This is what it does. All of these people fucking want to watch now because, plea went off. Now everybody wants to watch. Yeah, nobody's fucking interested when I'm like level-headed, laying out like the actual fucking like reasons that this shit's going on in an abstract way without using all of these like spicy particulars, and instead like people just want it to be juicy. They just want it to fucking
So they can comment on it and go, oh look, Debrief did this, did that, got angry.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like Vaush.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, fucking welcome everybody.
Welcome to this one moment of hours and hours of really useful theory play content.
Literally hundreds of thousands of hours. Literally, well, wait, hold on. Hundreds of thousands. Well, that's a little intense.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
That's a lot. I don't think.
I can definitely say thousands of hours.
Yeah.
Like, if you watched all my content on YouTube, it would probably take, at least 100 hours. But if you watched all my Twitch VODs from back like when I was streaming 12 hours a day, yeah, just go through all that. Yeah, no, I don't like to engage in this mode. I really don't. But fucking,
This is like basically rare.
yeah.
But we're talking about an important subject, and someone just decided to not use their brain.
And I'm also not really committed to being online for much longer. I have no commitment to being here much longer because you people are so fucking insufferable sometimes. And that's really what it boils down to. So, you know, in the future, when people are like, you can't have nice things, this is why, yep, because I'll just fucking, I'm sorry, that it's just a basic truth. Like, this is why we can't have nice things. There's a lot of people who are like, it took them years of dealing with like so much anxiety just to turn on their camera and start streaming or start making video essays. And then eventually like they get seduced by these people in their communities and like, because, you know, they're genuinely nice people. They're almost always nice people. They're almost always nice. And that's the biggest problem, is that you've got like nice people like doing this. And it's like, okay, but it doesn't mean that you're right just because you're nice. And it doesn't mean that you have the right to tell other people like how to be beyond like a pretty limited set of things. And where we draw the line and how we qualify that is one of the biggest questions that we don't spend enough time talking about. But it's, you know, like this is a huge problem. A lot of people don't want to talk. A lot of people are scared of being canceled. A lot of people don't want to like speak out on these things. And so the people who tend to speak up the most are people who are just like, their takes they couldn't be more superficial. And yeah, the like, well, it's just kind of this and it's just kind of that. And well, why is it really necessary kind of mode? It's just like, it becomes like a survival mechanism for some people who are going to stay online and keep doing oh shit. I just realized these little critters that I set up in the hut actually are doing half of this. I don't need to harvest the ancient fruit from this area because they're already doing it. Well, thank you. Little Jumamis or whatever they're called.
Junos.
Yeah. What is it?
Junimos.
Just the happy little fairies who want to pick your fruit. Yeah, that's not fucking weird. That's totally not something that I'm going to bring up in my structural analysis of the economy or the economic mechanisms in Stardew Valley. I'm totally not going to talk about the magical workforce that is you buy them once and then they're free labor forever. Not going to talk about that at all. Totally irrelevant to political economy. Yeah, it was Lampe. It was a conversation with you that got me thinking. Like, fuck, this is such a perfect video. Stardew Valley is such a perfect video for talking about capitalism.
Dude, the more we talked about it, the more I started thinking about it too. Like, it really just has everything.
It has it all. It's all right there. Like, it is one of the most wholesome games. Yet at the same time, its economics are so utopian. It's like the capitalist, realist, liberal, like who made this game probably, unless they're a crypto fash, which is also obviously possible. Wouldn't that be funny? Like Eric's just like this. Eric, the Stardew Valley developer, is just like a crypto fash. Like, but anyway, like, but they're probably just a liberal, which, you know, it's basically the same thing. Then it's like, well, what is there like seriously? You grow a tomato and it always produces the same value no matter how many tomatoes you grow. And oh yeah, you have no competition. The only competition in town is competition between Jojo and Pierre's. And for those who've never played this game before, Jojo Mart is Walmart basically, and it comes into town basically to, you know, compete against the only other store. And the guy who runs the place is obviously an asshole, because how could you do such a thing without being an asshole? How could this have something deeper and structural going on? It couldn't. And so it's just like, it's the evil corporation that's really just about an asshole, because that's the critique of it. And then you've got, and your goal is to make friends with everybody and restore the community center. And once you restore the community center, spoiler alert, the whole place just, the whole competitor just magically goes out of business because people just like stop going to Jojo Mart. Even though Pierre's is only open it's never open on Wednesdays, but Jojo Mart is, which is one of the big reasons people go there in the first place. So it's just like, yeah, this is going to be such a fertile game for talking about a lot of dynamics, because it's like, like people think the economy works basically like this game, and it's like that's capitalist realism and that's liberalism, and then it's like, oh, well, let's talk about the way that someone would have to design a mod. Let's talk about the way someone would have to design a mod if they were to make this game actually function like the real world. And that is just like a video that I just like, oh, I'm so excited to do it. Also, hello. Silverspook, welcome. Silverspook says, yeah, I missed that Mexie Vaush thing. Well, you're lucky, I guess. Obviously, I'm not going to like reopen that can of worms. In fact, I should probably change the title of this. Or fuck, I should probably just stop streaming since everybody showed up because I was being spicy. I don't want to encourage it. Every one of you, if you only came to my stream for that and you don't come for most of my other shit, how fucking dare you? I'm gonna woke scold you now for that. How fucking dare you? Go watch Silverspook's rants. If you like fucking hype, if you like fucking people who get really pissed and go off on rants all the time, go watch fucking Silverspook. Silverspook's really good at ranting. Like really fucking good at it. I am not half the man, or envy for that matter, that fucking Silverspook is. In many ways. And so you want to talk to a real person of color, a colonized subject, native Hawaiian who wasn't allowed to speak his own language. Like, yeah, if you're like, you know, I can't make up my own opinions. I only let like representatives of marginalized communities speak for me. Well, at least start with, at least if that's true for you, if you don't think that you can think for yourself, then at least start with Silverspook and not like some fucking white person who likes to tell you that, right? Just go watch some Silverspook. And I don't want to tokenize Silverspook, so I'll go ahead and say there's plenty of others, obviously. And I don't sit here and I'm just like gonna go down the line. Oh yeah, and also Angie Speaks and also but maybe I should. Here also watch Halem Elra. He's in my recommended channels on my YouTube page. He's got some of the best theory videos. Watch Conquest of Dread. Excellent, amazing, and way criminally underreviewed. And watch other theory one. This is a theory one. I always get his name, Tony, but I always forget the name of his channel. But I think it's Big Bread Brains. Big Bread Brains is fucking awesome. And so, but anyway, yeah. Yeah, if you really like want like to step it up a notch, like those are all channels that will definitely do that. So I'll go ahead and link them in the description of this video. And I'm also going to unlist this video on YouTube and probably take down the VOD. And so you can all like make your little clips of me going off, and maybe I'll show the full context later if I ever need to fucking clean up. I won't apologize for any strangers though. Listen, I'm serious. I've really put a lot of thinking into this. I don't apologize to strangers unless I did something that I already disagreed with myself on, or if I did something where normal people in my life who I respect and trust and I've known for years are able to talk to me about the issue there. I don't fucking trust strangers online. And like, I'm sorry, it's an attention economy, and we got a lot of people who never got attention from mommy and daddy, and they fucking love flexing on their creators, and that's a thing. So, sorry, if your whole thing is like waiting for me to fuck up so you can fucking like try to get me to apologize, I'll fucking never apologize to you ever as long as I'm on a channel, ever. Just get over yourself. I have like 100 people in my life I have to keep up with, and a lot of them are marginalized, so you don't fucking get to like speak out as the representative. No, I know people of every fucking community you could possibly fucking speak for, and I call them like on the phone and have real conversations, you know? God. Comrade Saru says, don't blame ya. I recommend some Luna Oi, says Silverspook. Yes, and Luna Oi has been amazing recently for the work that she's been doing on just really using the COVID crisis to really highlight the degree to which Vietnam is handling COVID like a fucking champ. I don't think that there's been any deaths. I think that if I heard Silverspook right recently that there was like a tourist or some shit that was like sick and they were getting all the fucking care in the world to get back on their feet. Unlike like obviously the United States, which is like the most, it's proving itself like, well, we already knew it was the most backward country, but it's like proving itself to be so, like over and over again, even harder, to the point where it's like you have to have your head pretty far up your ass to like avoid that. But you know, as far as like actually hearing from it yourself from somebody who's like there on the ground, like definitely Luna Oi. Actually, fuck it. Hey, Silverspook, do you want to come in here and do a rant? I'm done. But I'll keep playing Stardew Valley if you want to come in here and do one of your rants, because I'd hate to waste this audience. They're all here for a rant, and there's 37 of them. You might only be in the YouTube chat, but I've got people on Twitch, I've got people on YouTube, I've got people on my own personal website. And so right now, there's actually 37 people here. If you want to do a bit of a rant, like, I'm sure that only half of them will leave, which is, you know, the way of it. But you know, the half that stay will definitely get something out of it. But if you're going to bed or something, no worries about it. And then fuck, we could raid you if you really wanted to stay up. Yeah, we'll probably raid out if Spook doesn't want to come do a quick, you know, plug. Not a quick plug, but like you know, they're never quick. They're usually like, it's amazing. Like if you bring Silverspook on, it's like, there could be like 3 or 5 people on a panel, and Spook's just going to be there just like, not a word for like an hour. And then finally people are like, Silverspook, stop talking. Silverspook, say something. And then Silverspook's like, and then Silverspook's like, 45-minute rant.
That last one though, something really fucking weird happened, because I swear that we were alone in there. Like I couldn't even at the other people that supposedly were in the raid.
Yeah, we raided in and then nothing happened.
Yeah, but then their numbers showed up, but like I don't think they were in there. I
think what happened, I'm almost positive that what happened had to do with Ann. What happened with Ann, which was, you know, Ann was playing Stardew Valley. So she was listening, and I was on the phone with her. And so, she, you know, at the point that I was like, Ann, are you seeing this? Are you responding? She's like, no, I'm playing a game. And I was like, oh, because we'd raided in with all these people. And then I'm like, where's chat? And no one's responding. And then it's like, oh, well, people are fucking on Twitch. People are playing games. So of course that's the issue.
Well, yeah, but like I said, there should have been, there were people that the thing said raided with us that I couldn't at in the chat. Like when you go to at and it shows you all the people who were available to at, and they were supposedly in the raid with us, but they weren't there to be added. And so I was like, boy, that's kind of weird then. Like what the hell happened? But anyway, I needed to be in bed half an hour ago, but somebody didn't realize that Lepa, what's her name? Lepa Radic, who was celebrated in International Women's Day for being executed by the Nazis. They put this thing up like warning about socialism, because this is what socialism does to people. Look at these Nazi socialists.
Oh my fucking god.
She was a communist. And they have no idea. She was a partisan. They even say that in the post. I don't think they know what it means.
See, these people, the people who say that shit, well, actually, usually the people who say this shit are just exploiting the ignorance of their audience, but they know full well what they're doing. But yeah, these people like to just act like, oh, National Socialists are the same as Universal Socialists, and they're the same as Communists, and all they mean is big government and take away your guns. And it's like, yeah, and free abortions for all. And it's like, yep, that's about the most stupid thing I've ever fucking heard in my life, that shows that you actually have absolutely no basis in this conversation. Congratulations, but oh well. Yeah.
What is the...
But wait, you were saying you were going to bed and then you saw that? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so I've got a massive wall of text over here, and I'm trying to find the 3 Arrows video, and then I have to go to bed.
Ah, okay. Yeah, you get it. Yeah, the only thing I'll say about Camazotz is that everything that I said in this thing that applied to Mexie applies to Camazotz, even though I love him. And actually, I love him a lot more than Mexie, because I actually have conversations with him. And he and I did like a 3-hour debate on this kind of stuff one time. And You know, it's fine. It doesn't mean that I don't raid him. It doesn't mean that I don't support him. It doesn't mean he doesn't do a lot of good work. It just means that a lot of what was said still applies, you know. Okay, this slime got out of its cage and now it's attacking me. Okay, got it. So it makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense that there's like these slime incubator things in this game so you can make the monsters from the dungeons. It makes no sense, but I did it just to see what it's like, and all it means is that there's all these little fuckers who attack you. It's like,
the girls were really excited about it, and I'm just not at all. But they built one on the farm, so there we are.
Yeah. Wow. Did Silverspook respond? I can jump in for a short bit of an update, but no streaming tonight. Okay, cool. Well, you know where I live.
Good one.
Nice one, Theory Plebe. Silverspook, actually, you know what would be kind of cool is I'll just keep sitting here in front of this camera, and Silverspook I'll set up in front of the other camera. That's a great idea. Cool. Here we go. Are you talking about the 16th Vietnam patient? Theory Plebe, Quack says. That's what Lampe was talking about.
What, I was?
Yeah. Yeah, someone was talking about the... Oh, wait, no, this is something else. What are you talking about, Quack? I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, no, because, Lampe, you were talking about someone in Germany. I don't know what... And that was obviously not 16th.
Yeah.
What is... Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about.
I was talking about Leporatic in Germany.
See ya.
I'm hitting the send button and going into bed. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, go to bed. Get off here. Yeah, Silverspook, come on over. Let's see. Let me get this set up in a way that would be different than how we did it last time. I'll give this microphone to Silverspook, and I'll
Oh, he's physically coming.
Yeah.
Oh.
Except, well, okay, I was gonna make a dirty joke, but now I'm not.
Yeah.
Okay. He is physically going to show up in your living space, not just join the... That makes sense.
Yeah. Yes. He's coming now. I hear him. That's why I made the joke. You know where I live.
Oh, I forgot about that. Didn't click with me.
Violative says, I used to be a woke skull for a while, literally turned off my critical thinking to not get canceled in my group, like ... Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you feel like you have no other choice in these spaces.
Welcome, Silverspook.
Shut up.
Where should I go?
Come on and say hello. Can people see him? No.
Oh.
For those who've never met him before, the person I was referencing earlier who does all the rants and all that blah blah, this is Silverspook. So, yeah, I'm gonna set you up just right here. So I'll just keep playing the game, and you got this microphone. You just talk to that camera, and I'm gonna watch this shit.
Okay, we're going further.
Here, see that? So now that's you right there.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So go for it. Yeah. So, and then I will turn my camera off unless for some reason we were both talking, but that probably won't happen. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can introduce your channel and talk about the shit that you do. Oh wait, hold on. I gotta turn on my other mic while I'm talking over here. Okay, this is like this cheaper mic that my friend gave me for free. This one's like, I try not to use it as much. But anyway, so take her away, yeah.
All right. Anyway, that's the camera, right?
Yeah.
I was like down here. Hey everybody, I'm Silverspook, and yeah. So obviously, yeah, we're in the same the Silver Plebe Theory Spook comment here, and I'm a native Hawaiian and game developer, a lot of things, but yeah, I make cyberpunk adventure games, including Neofeud, which is a game about my life experiences growing up as a native Hawaiian and somebody in a colonized place called Hawaii, where I live, and where we still live, but we're less in the city area. And it's it's a game about a lot of things, class, intersections of class and race, kind of like filtered through satirical adventure games. Like if I'm trying to figure out the best way to describe it. It's like if Taika Waititi directed like The Matrix crossed with Ghost in the Shell and Blade Runner or something like that. The comedy style is Taika Waititi. That's what I think. Because when I say like Terry Gilliam or like people from or Douglas Adams, people are like, who's that guy? The Hitchhiker's guy. Anyway, so but yeah, it's a game. It's on sale right now, so it's 70% off. If you want to support everything that we do here, also like all of our it's a large space that we have here. It's more large than what myself and Holly, my partner, require. So part of that's what we're doing here is sharing some of that space with Theory Plebe. And so every sale goes to support the ongoing no landlord-free living arrangement that we have here, but we do require like repairs and property taxes and all these other kind of things like that. So every sale, and also to just keep us going. So and the game's on sale right now. I feel like I just came out here to do an ad. That's not all I'm here to do, but it's on sale right now. It started today, so I have to. I'm a one person. Basically, I make the games myself. I do the programming, art, music, and writing. Neophyte took me like 3 years. Part of that was done while homeless, working as a teacher and social worker, and just like struggling, like many people are struggling, and struggling extra hard now in the capitalist hellscape that we live in, right? So it's a game that's like really about that, and working with homeless children, working with refugees, working with people of color, and poor white people from Detroit and South Carolina, where one of my friends, same hometown of Luna Oi's partner, the other half of Non-Compete, America Johnson's from. So it's a story about inequality across all vectors, oppression across all vectors, the military-industrial complex, the prison-industrial complex, what it's a plutocracy, the billionaire class. When the money printer go burr meme that's out now, it's my interactions with some of those people who have been doing that for decades. So it deals with like the financial system. I don't even know where really to start with it, but it's a game that I hope people like can learn about the world that they're in. Learn part kind of like it's a kind of encrypted version of Hawaii, because Hawaii really is that. It really is a game about my experiences as a native Hawaiian growing up in one of the most beautiful places, but also one of the most. It's the highest concentration of billionaires on the planet. So we have the very richest people there with some of the very poorest people and very exploited people there. And so that's really what it's about. And that's what my streams are about as well, is about everything under the sun. And I have a penchant for like cyberpunk and science fiction. I also like write science fiction. Have done that for a long time. I'm friends with William Gibson, and that's part of how I met my partner. It's actually through. So I kind of filter all of these things through Cyberpunk, The Matrix, Blade Runner, what Cyberpunk 2077 is based on, the game that's coming out soon. There's lots of the Cyberpunk games coming out recently. So all that stuff where did this neon and the pink and purple Tokyo skyline and the flying cars and these, I always found that I was drawn to Cyberpunk because it's a genre that's very good at describing the present and the near future as it is, as opposed to like space opera, sci-fi, or fantasy, which are good at talking about. They're fun places, and you can talk about moral ethics, some aspects of politics, society. But Cyberpunk really deals with like, or when it does it, when it isn't just 80s retro future reskinned over Grand Theft Auto, or just kind of like a fun aesthetic. When it actually deals with the topics that it's trying to deal with, like in some games like Deus Ex, Techno Babylon. One of my recent I was just talking to somebody, an indigenous game dev who created a game called Umurangi Generation yesterday. It's a Maori, which is Conquest of Dread, the indigenous people of New Zealand. This is another game I think it just came out today. It's called Umurangi Generation. So I'm just pitching everybody's games all at the same time. But I did just talk to them yesterday, so I think that's also worth checking out. And checking out like other, apart from like kind of like the classic interpretations of cyberpunk, seeing some like other takes, marginalized people's takes, people not necessarily from the United States, takes on that, and And Red Strings Club is a game that I interviewed those folks as well. They're a queer creators from Spain, so that's another different take on cyberpunk as well. And their unique life experiences kind of filtered through the near hellscape future. It's kind of like it's getting harder to write cyberpunk because the present is too cyberpunk. It's too cyberpunk dystopian. With less cool haircuts, but that's kind of part of the thing of Neofeed. I was like, these people's haircuts are too cool.
With less cool haircuts.
Y'all gonna be wearing some like broke ass ripped t-shirts from like 30-year-old bands, and everybody's just gonna be pushing around shopping carts full of like their cans of tuna fish while they go to teach their college classes.
At least in Mad Max they've got the fucking goggles and shit.
Yeah, like it's all like
we can't even get masks.
Yeah, like football pads with like crazy spikes and like assless chaps. Like we're not that cool. No, there are some cool fashion in Neofeed, but there's also just the regular people like I don't have time to think about fashion. I'm too busy like trying to eat. But anyway, so that's kind of what I do there. I did want to make some announcements. So this is briefly, maybe I don't know if you missed this, but one of our we are trying to raise some chickens here, and we had some troubles with some of the. But we discovered there were 15 eggs from one of our chickons, and we tested them, and they're all good. The kids actually had, so we got over a dozen today.
Holy crap!
So we're working on our growing the food, trying to I noticed you're talking about Stardew Valley, and they're doing some capitalist. It has some capitalist mechanics.
Yeah, well, it has instead of capitalist mechanics, it just operates the way everybody wishes economics worked, and the way that most people who think that capitalism is good, it's the way that they think things work. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's like, every tomato that you sell is just worth a certain amount, and it just always works that way. And it's not like some other motherfucker's gonna monocrop you out of existence. Like that. That's not a thing. Yeah.
Like there's no NAFTA in Stardew Valley.
Right. Yeah. No. And you can use fertilizer to keep the weeds out, but you're not depleting your soil. You can just keep farming. You don't deplete soil and turn it into dirt and then have to import everything. Yeah. That's
I see. Yeah.
It's like magical.
Yeah. I haven't actually played, but yeah, I remember. I've heard other critiques of it, but
Conquest of Dread uses it in that video on colonization, actually.
Oh yeah. I will echo that. Conquest of Dread, another friend and brother from another Polynesian mother down in Aotearoa, New Zealand. You should definitely check out Conquest of Dread. What was something else I was going to talk about? Oh yeah. So Vietnam was briefly brought up. I like to bring that up all the time just because it's a great example. If you don't know anything about Vietnam, I just watch. You have to watch all of it. Just like. Watch like one or two of the Lunoi videos, whatever you have some time for. They're very like, wholesome, but also like very, very good education on like, just a place that has 95 million. It's not tiny. It's like 1/3 of the population of the United States. It's the same, like, if you stretch across the country's, the distance from top north to south is the same or greater than the United States. So it's a much bigger country than you think. And if you live anywhere where most of the parts of the planet, there's a lot of disinformation about that particular place because it's a place where things that are like I would say more on the putting people over profit rather than profit over people, and whatever word you want to use to identify that, socialism or whatever. They succeed at doing that on a large scale with 100 million people, and that's why so if you really want to get like the real scoop on what's happening there. You gotta watch Lunoi, and there's a lot of lessons about. I look at Luna as like kind of like a not an elder, but like I'm older, but I look at Luna as like an advisor to like what we can be doing elsewhere, and certainly here on the Big Island of Hawaii, where we have more. It's 200,000 people, but similarly, I just wanted I opened the streams with like Vietnam has 324 COVID cases. 0 deaths, and the United States has 1.5 million and 92,200 deaths. So, and the counter just keep going up. And also, they just read today that they're apparently hiding the Florida scientist who was in charge of monitoring and creating a system to monitor and track the total number of cases was fired by the government for refusing to manipulate the results of the number of COVID cases in Florida. That's just one state. Where they fired her and replaced her with someone else who would be more willing to manipulate. So and then so there's accusations of like, oh, China's lying about this. Anyways,
Yeah. If China does, then the U.S. is doing everything that they are. So.
Yeah. But anyway, so I definitely recommend you checking those out. It's they're and just in terms of the COVID response. Also here on the Big Island, of Hawaii, we have there's 200,000 people. So per capita, we have 10 times less cases and we have 0 deaths here across the state of Hawaii. I think it's also like about 8 to 10 times per capita less cases than the United States, and here on the Big Island, all throughout Hawaii, there are some deaths, but it's like vanishingly smaller, or not. Well, it's much smaller than the across the U.S. So, at the same time, you can't fly in here because there is you can fly in, but it's a 14-day quarantine, so you have to pay for your own hotel stay for 14 days, which is causing disruptions to the tourism industry, and that's putting things in turmoil, but it can be a good thing as well, because that I'm not going to go off on the tourism industry, and I do that a lot. You can sub to my channel, and it's a Twitch stream, and I'll do that later. I don't have time to do all that, but I will just say that it's the COVID crisis. I know a lot of people are like, I was just reading today, like a lot of people are. The mental health is kind of taking a downward spiral for many people across the planet. People are kind of losing it.
As is obvious with me, yeah.
Yeah. So it is tough, but at the same time, it is an opportunity. There are for peoples and countries and peoples, even if you're inside of what the imperial metropole, I often call it the capitalist Death Star of the planet is the United States, basically, right? At the same time, internally to that 5,000 by 2,000 place with a little blue line on a Google map somewhere that calls itself the United States. Internal to that, there are people that are aiding each other. There's 175 wildcat strikes that have happened since March, including a Costco, Amazon, Whole Foods, 50 restaurants across Florida, sanitation facilities, government, transportation, etc. across the board. Mutual aid networks, the rent strikes. There were 7 building combined strikes in New York City. So there's a lot of positive things that are coming out of that, and it's a shock to the system and the doctrines. And as Naomi Klein's shock doctrine describes, the doctrines of the capitalists are being attempting to be pushed forward with the $10 trillion, massive bailouts for the richest corporations, people on the planet. At the same time, there's also you just have to, in the shock, you really have to just push the left has to put its doctrine, and people people who care about other people more than they care about their personal benefit and their selfish prestige or whatever have to push their doctrine harder and more. I think is kind of that's what we got to do. Anyway, so yeah. Anything else? Oh, you're going to bathroom? Okay.
Well, yeah. If I can take a leak really quick, you can just.
Oh yeah. I'll just mad lib. I want to look at the chat.
I was also gonna close out on playing Neo Future.
Oh, okay. Yeah, for sure. I feel like I want to look at the chat, but I can't see it. But it's okay. Actually, let me look at it real fast. Okay.
How about this? I'll just give you these headphones.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've got eyes on chat or whatever, but here actually.
Feels
like my laptop is overheating though.
Oh, okay.
Got eyes on.
I don't know if they can see me. But you look
Some
pretty cool.
chat.
I've got you on a cool background.
So. Okay, I can stay here. Yeah.
Let's bring up the. So folks, I'm gonna pull up the live chat only, not the YouTube or the Twitch chats. So if you want to see. Okay, look at that. Holly has shared the Una Loy channel. Or Una Loy. There you go. So you'll be able to see that chat now.
Okay, cool. On
the headphones, Ann can talk to you. She's on voice chat too.
Oh, okay. Okay. Sorry. I totally missed the voice chat. How's it going?
I'm doing well. I'm just playing Stardew Valley and chilling.
Okay, cool. Are you in Idaho?
Yeah, it's like almost 4 a.m. My sleep is just schedule non-existent.
Oh no.
I sleep when I want. I stay up as late as I want.
Yeah.
That's quarantine life right now.
Yeah. Well, it is quarantine. Let's see. I'm just reading the chat. Okay, yeah. So they're saying there were 0 cases. Then somebody went into tourists came back. Yeah, it's it's similar to Hawaii. We had 0 cases actually for 5 days in a row with all no new cases and every case recovered and no deaths for like 5 days. Somebody came back from vacation or came back from being on the mainland for like 60 days, and but they're from here, but so they're quarantined in place. There's 2 new cases, but other than that, there's been no communal spread for probably almost a week or more here. So yeah, that's pretty cool.
That's really good.
Yeah. How's it going, Punk Sai? Also, is Punk Sai in the chat? Punk Sai was on.
Yeah, Punk Sai. All right, am I on? I'm on. Yeah, I'm here too. Okay, so I was gonna say like one of the things that I wanted to say about your content before we let you go is that so if you appreciate my content for theory, what I think that you can probably most appreciate for Silverspook's content beyond the game, which is its own content. That's an experience on its own. If you like, it's got a puzzle game aspect. It's got a bunch of other aspects that are like it's a smart game. It's and I love games that are put together by a single creator. And but one of the other things about the content coming from where am I? I'm trying to find where I am on this thing. Hold on one sec. I'm trying to turn on my camera. Okay, here I am. I'm done playing this game. I've changed the title of this game. All right, so now people can see both of us. Cool. All right. So one of the things I love about your content is that you're this is a primer for a question. Is I fucking love your ability to tie together everything that's going on in the world, particulars, and it's not just anecdotes. And it all plays within the framework of capital, state, and empire. And so, and you're really good at it. Just like you just like run for like 6 hours straight streaming, where you're bringing in particulars like. I'm just like, I don't keep up with enough current. I don't know where the fuck you get all your information, like what you do to keep up with it all, or how your brain keeps it all there. I'm sure that this is where Molly gets it from. It's like a very encyclopedic form of knowledge. But my point is that it's like, I'm here for talking about like the mechanisms of capital and the abstract ultimatums and logics of the state. Like Silverspook's here to like show you how that plays out. And if you tune into, he's got 4 streams that he does in a week, and 2 of them are on YouTube and 2 of them are on Twitch, and the links are in the chat. But if you tune in from like I didn't know about Larry Summers, right? Like, shouldn't I know about that? Yes, I should know about that. And so there's not a lot of people streaming on Left Twitch where I go and I feel like every time I go I learn something new. And those are the people I try to raid the most, even though a lot of people, sometimes I just raid them because I just want to hang out. And they're chill streamers and they're just chill and they create a nice space for just chilling. But every fucking time you go to Silverspook stream, you will learn something new. It's like touring news. You will learn something new. But I wanted to, speaking of Larry Summers, I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about Biden's cabinet, because we were talking a little bit about the people who went from being like, I'm a populist and I'm on the side of the populist working class, and because that can really allow us to like, raise consciousness in a way that we couldn't have raised before with Bernie or blah, 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 blah. And then they just like, well, now that that's down, now it's like focus on Biden and scolding disenfranchised people for not jumping on board with that. And obviously there's still arguments, we already addressed this, about, there is short-term harm reduction that can be gained. And if you live in a swing state, I have the privilege of not living in a swing state. I live in a very blue state right now. And so it's like, don't even have to worry about that. Biden will win. But but ultimately, like, if you're putting your energy into the DNC right now, let's talk a little bit about how the Democrats function, and let's talk a little bit about what they think is a normal cabinet to put together, and your experiences, or at least your research in that.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for the kind words. I should say before I go off on that, I talk a lot about a lot of subjects. Basically, my main function is writing fiction, in particular like science fiction, but cyberpunk is I would say it's kind of like half literary, half sci-fi, kind of blended in together. But it requires a lot of specifics. Like the exact, like, he fenced, $7 million through a fence in Shanghai for 3 MB of hot RAM. The style of it is very specific, but also like I like to be very specific so that in general, especially when I'm talking about these kind of not that they're airy fairy, but it's they can get kind of heady, they can get kind of cerebral, and then I like to pinpoint it to specifically this individual make $3 million specifically hurting these people, and so then it makes it harder, like makes it harder for people to like just say, oh, you're just being hyperbolic. Sometimes I do comedy too, but you can look specific. If you disagree with what I'm saying, you can go look specifically up the individuals, the transactional amounts, the organizations, etc. that I'm talking about, and you make up your mind. Don't look them up on Reuters. You can ask Luna, oh, why you shouldn't do that. But anyways, so that's kind of how that works. And I just want to say, like, Theory Plebes work is it's very important as well, even though it's like I don't have a education specifically like in the kind of theoretical philosophical with the reach in terms of the field of philosophy, and I think that like we need that as well. Sometimes I if I say things that are like dismissive, or I believe in diversity of tactics, and like if I say things that are dismissive of this, or we don't need these, this is not important, we should just do this. I don't want to. I just want to say that all people that are pushing for societies and just generally prioritize people and environment over profit through whatever tactics, strategies, and also skill sets that each individual has are necessary, and we shouldn't, infight, right? We know what that is. There's a whole video that just came out on my friend Non-Compete's channel that's just about that. But anyways, so I just want to say that you should all sub to. Oh, you're all sub to Theory Please, of course. You're already but yeah, so it's very.
Probably not. I don't know how like me going off the handle at one point made it so that the viewership went up from 20 to 30. I'm sure someone shared that in some community somewhere. And it's not like those people are the ones talking in chat, so who knows who the fuck they are. Yeah. But like, I'm sure they haven't subbed, so they should definitely sub to you and me. So
Yeah. Do definitely check it out. Especially if you want to learn anything in regard to theory, Marxist analysis, etc. It's invaluable stuff, and we need people like at every level, from every voice, as many levels and steps along the way. If you think of it like. You have like preschool, kindergarten, grade school, high school, college, and then there's all these different branches, and so we have to kind of think in a very. That's one thing I kind of when I watch Luna Oy, it's like we have like comic books that are like Uncle Ho's comic book. Like what do we have here? We have billionaire philanthropist, arms dealer, playboy, and Captain Star Spangled Underpants saving the world with Tomahawk missiles, and that's it right there. We don't have an entire arsenal of children's songs, books. And also everybody has to study Marx. All 95 million people are schooling Marx. The business leaders, not just some philosophers and Richard Wolff with the one weird uncle, right? It was like I went to Harvard, Princeton, and Yale, and everybody thought I was like crazy and was going to go to Guantanamo for 5 years for saying the word socialism, right? They're every single person that shocked. Anyway. That's if you want to hear more about that, go watch the Illinois. But it's specific to Larry Summers and the Biden cabinet. So the where do you start with that? I will say Larry Summers specifically. Where did I get that information? So one thing I often say, like I
wait, which information?
Oh, the information regarding like Larry Summers. So I did one stream though specifically just on if you're not familiar, Larry Summers is I believe it's Biden's leading. It's a short list, like the top 5 or number 1 for Joe Biden, the leading Democratic candidate, economic advisor. Basically, he's probably going to get another place in the cabinet. And so, like, I listened to a variety of sources. I have some friends. One thing that like led me like around 2009. I was a programmer for game companies. Like I worked for AAA game companies, big ones like EA, Blizzard. Never worked for a big AAA game company unless you want to be worked to death and crunch. Nowadays, it's worse than even then. Now you're looking at 100 hours of crunch per week, and probably leaving your partner because you don't talk to them, and never seeing your children for the rest of your life, as long as you work for a AAA game company. Never do that. Start if anything else, do what the Stardew Valley did. Full disclosure and disclaimer, I'm not your personal life coach or career advisor, but I don't recommend it. I've done working for the big game companies, but that's part of it as well, is seeing inside of corporate structures. I was never like a CEO of a company, but I've worked in corporate structures. I worked in nonprofit and in governmental structures, and I live in Honolulu, Hawaii, where I've worked directly with billionaires. I don't want to say which specific ones because I don't want to get Death Star. I don't have like a black hole opened up inside of where I exist and I've been vanished off the face of Earth. They don't have that technology yet, but they would use it. Anyways,
they'll probably beta trial it on you.
A heart attack gun, I've worked directly with them. I know some of them. A lot of the game neophyte is there's a class of neophyte royalty that are basically, their titles are like Chief Executive Officer / King. Warren Clinton Bush of the Clinton Bush multiplanetary conglomerate that they own, it's $quadrillion. They lasso comets. It's like Elon Musk crossed with Jeff Bezos crossed with the Clintons, and the Bushes all got married and had a kind of horrific love child, probably with a very long name that's algebraic expression with a bunch of random cultural appropriated Greek symbols that don't mean anything. But anyway, that's kind of like the character is based on like some of my personal experiences with hyper rich people, and also. I was studying to be, as a programmer, if you really want to make money, I shouldn't give this advice because I don't want anybody to do this. If you really want to make a lot of money, get very close to a bank. Get very close to a Goldman Sachs bank. At the same time, you will have to sell your soul. You have to sell everything that you thought. It's I don't want to compare it to military service, but you're going to have to do horrific things when you get to the higher levels of that. Because I was studying, what would I have to learn? If I want to be a high-frequency trading Goldman Sachs algorithm programmer or a JP Morgan, I'm going to go to New York City. Let's try to make some money. I want to stop living in a van in a Maserati, eating spoonfuls of Skippy's crunchy peanut butter for dinner, feeding my children ramen and peas and carrots, trying to make this anti-capitalist, anti-plutocracy indie cyberpunk game. Because this is getting old, just being poor, broke, surf, right? I mean, it's depressing, right? So I was like, okay, we're going to go to New York. We're going to use this programming degree. We're going to do the American dream. And it was like, okay, this is what you got to do, right? Studying it, talking to those other people who had worked in bank programming, even at Bank of Hawaii, and other people who worked in and researching what they have to do. It's like, well, you're going to have to jack up the price of rice or grain to $100, per pound in North Africa. And what's that going to do? Well, that's going to, cause chaos, starvation, thousands or hundreds of thousands of children will die, and then these, alphabet soup agencies are going to go and they're going to overthrow their government with their Killmonger. They're going to install a fascist or a neoliberal puppet, and and you're going to be involved in that. It's like, that sounds horrible, and that's just the light stuff. Then we've got other weapons manufactured. It's a very deep rabbit hole. I don't want to go down that whole thing, but it's basically you have to choose to. But then studying it, I was like, oh, I see all these entities and organizations, and this is kind of like how they work together. It's not like a one-to-one. It's not like the Illuminati and they're all just sitting down in a room. Like every single executive on the planet and every president, they all have their own individual lives, but they have their spheres of influence and they have their money and they can move world events. They can move entire governments. They can move 180, the military industrial complex is a real thing. It's like they want to keep making money, selling war and bombs and guns, and banks are involved in the transactions, and the Wall Street and the international monetary system and the international financial system. And so they don't always see eye to eye, and there are divisions and splits. Trump caused one because he has his own very used car salesman version of kleptocracy, and he kind of shoots himself in the foot a lot, and it's caused other splits. And I don't have time to go over all of it, but I will just say, in terms of the Democratic Party, I don't really. A lot of people talk about harm reduction, and Trump, obviously very right wing, very racist, proto-fascist elements, encouraging a lot of horrible behavior. Has done many very material horrible things. Is an idiot, obviously. It said he's drinking hydroxychloroquine today, and that's horrible. He's like self-lampooning. Trump is putting the Onion out of business and the Hard Times. I'm so sorry if I'm a writer. Lee Camp was a former writer for the Onion. I'm sure Trump put him out of business. Now he had to go to Washington D.C. and start his comedy show because he's like, how do I outdo this dude? Anyway, but so he's bad. He's not good. At the same time, Biden has the people in his he's got a long track record of being very good at executing on neoliberal policies, very hawkish, along with Hillary Clinton. I was like, I would say more pro-war than the Trump, specifically the Trump administration. That's kind of what they ran on during the election. Trump was saying things. I mean, Trump obviously, like, he's not anti-war. Obviously, he's like, but Trump's kind of overall policy, if he has one, isn't going to have a policy, but his brand that he projected to 330 million Americans and much of the world was, we're going to get in, we're going to blow them up, we're going to take the oil. He said things like, we shouldn't do regime change wars. That signified a kind of a warning bells went off in the military industrial complex and the Lockheed Martins and the Raytheons of the world, and they said, I don't know. I don't like that. I mean, just imagine, just the way I like to think about it is just whenever you hear these things, it's horrible, and it's gonna probably give you it's gonna give you like a psychic. Maybe it's giving me a psychic COVID and psychic AIDS to put myself inside of the mind of these horrible people. But just imagine that you run a multi-billion-dollar arms contracting corporation, right? And just imagine, I know you probably don't, but imagine you want to make another $100 billion. You don't want to make 10 billion. You don't want to lose money. You want to make 100 billion, right? And somebody says something like, we don't want any more regime change wars, right? Well, how does that impact your thinking as an executive, right? Who's horrible and has no soul and drinks virgin's blood with gold leaf burgers for dinner, but just imagine, right? What are you thinking? You're thinking, I don't actually like that. Even if he doesn't execute on it, I don't like that talk. I don't like that we shouldn't change a regime. We shouldn't go into North Africa. We shouldn't do another Chilean coup. I don't like we shouldn't go into not just Venezuela. We shouldn't go into Iran and stay in Syria and stay in every country and spend another $21 trillion. That's not good for you, right? Imagine you're playing StarCraft, right? And it's actually, the Terran. I don't know if you guys, maybe you don't know this, but just think of your favorite game, right? And we don't want to actually go and harvest more minerals, right? I need more minerals and more Vespine gas so I can make more battle cruisers. No, actually, we don't want to do any more battle cruisers, right? You're playing that game, you're like, well, I showed up to play 30 campaigns of carnage and death and destruction of the future aliens, the future xenomorphs versus the future Roswell aliens versus the humans. I don't want everybody to just have peace, right? You're like, I spent $40 to have fun doing interstellar colonial imperialism. I don't want this to end, right? So that's the way they think. I don't want the war to end. I want to keep harvesting minerals and Vespine gas and building battle cruisers and Death Stars and Star Destroyers and giant mutant 100-foot tall ultralisk half walrus half mastodon beast and I want to see carnage and death and destruction. That's what I paid $40 for. That's what I paid $40 billion for. That's why I'm an executive. I'm not here to stop war. So anyway, long story short, that's the way that they're thinking. And to kind of cut back to Biden, and that's kind of the split. And that's why I'm not sure, right? Obviously the more racist and the xenophobic and the racist kind of strains. And the Betsy DeVos and all the folks in Trump's cabinet are Mike Pompeo. These are ghoulish people, obviously, horrible people. Elliot Abrams, people who architected 70,000 person mass murdering death squads. These are horrible. These are not nice people, but neocons. But at the same time, it's kind of I don't know but I know that the Clintons, Biden, and what their platform was. A no-fly zone over Russia. That was a thing. That was part of which would have accelerated tensions between two nuclear superpowers. Not good. Their side of it was and still is regime change wars are good. More war all the time. Not just more Afghanistan. Let's go into Pakistan. Let's go into Iran and China. And you could argue, well, they operate independently of the administration. So whether it's Democrat or Republican, the deep state or the military industrial complex will exact their they will get their policies and foreign policy and military budgets done either way, and I mean that's fair. So, but and it's to an extent true. You can't vote against Goldman Sachs, the bank. Obama had 3 Goldman Sachs alumnus. There is one, Steve Mnuchin, that's currently in Trump's cabinet. And Larry, the thing about Larry Summers, just to kind of bring it back to that, because I know I'm kind of wandering, but Larry Summers has already been in 2 presidential cabinets. He was in Obama's cabinet for 8 years. He was in Clinton's, and literally architected the removal of the disbanding of the Securities and Exchange Act, which separated investment and commercial banking, which basically means after the run up to the Great Depression and the stock market crash in 1929, where you had the speculators basically taking all the money in America, everybody's retirement, everybody's bank accounts, just your regular your American savings, your Bank of America, and just gambling that to the max and making a giant international casino out of that, and then destroying the entire economy and impoverishing everyone and having great Gatsby levels of inequality, right? And that, right, was part of the Securities and Exchange Act was about removing that. It was about separating that, basically taking away the casino and taking away. It's like putting Cthulhu back in the box. It's like putting the Pandora. It's like repackaging the Pandora, terrors and the 4 horsemen of the financial apocalypse and putting them back in the box. And then Larry Summers with Bill Clinton got together and they said, hey, you know what would be really cool? Like opening back up the Kraken and letting them loose all over the planet. I mean, what could happen, right? I mean, we'll probably make $21 trillion worth of profit. We'll probably be able to print, $10 trillion, and the bankers, they'll all be like taking, they'll be taking $1 million waitress loans to the Applebee's waitress in Florida so that she can buy, with a no income, no jobs, no assets, subprime mortgage, and and it's fine. You have 100,000 of those. You have some dead people buying houses, some people with could barely pay it back. Some random Uber driver buying a house in Orange County. It's fine, right? We'll package those into collateralized debt obligations. We package those into credit default swaps. Dump that into all of your parents' pension funds and the firefighters' funds and your municipal funds. The ones that would pay so that the water in Flint and in 3,000 communities and all of Pennsylvania would have come out smelling like dog shit blended up with liquid Drano. Repair your infrastructure, your fire departments, your hospital system, your public education system. It's fine if we just nuke that whole thing and a handful of people get 25 more billion-dollar yachts, right? And hang out in Honolulu with my bosses. This is the fun fact. This is where they all come, including the Australian PM who sets all of his wallabies and kangaroos on fire, including half of the entire continent's forest, and then runs away and hangs out and has very expensive $10,000 champagne in Waikiki. I saw that. I didn't go and see that guy, but that's where they all come. That's part of how I kind of get some of this. Is I'm around some of the people who are like, oh yeah, I'm hanging out with those people in Waikiki. We're gonna go hang out at Iron Chef Morimoto's. We're gonna have it's really ridiculous the kind of food they have, like squid ink, blackened pasta, and emu eggs. Why emu eggs? I don't understand. You gotta have emu eggs. And why are you eating gold? These people, if you could collect a billionaire, if you work for anybody who has 75 golden toilets, just get some really good steel wool, scrape off some of the gold, and use that to pay your student loans, or just literally harvest their shit because it's full of gold and platinum, and then just put a really strong magnet over it, like a neodymium magnet, and just get all the gold. Hire some underpaid Filipinos for $1 an hour to sift out all of the electrical components, like they do with all of the Canadian trash that they dumped in the Philippines. And Duterte is like, I'm going to dump it in Vancouver if you keep sending all your crap over here. Anyway, so I can go off on a lot of things like that. But
I'm a gold miner in billionaire sewage, literally just shaking for those shards.
Yeah, you just get a really strong, if you can find an N95 respirator, put on your face. You don't have to smell all the disgusting emu egg feces, and just shake all the gold and the platinum out of all their gold leaf burgers, and then that's your student loans right there. You could pay maybe if you did that, you could with $3,000 you could pay at least 1 month's rent in San Francisco. But yeah, so long story short, it's I am not fully sure which which of the Biden or Trump, I don't think it's clear. It's definitely, this one is way worse. I'm not fully convinced. Obviously, they're both terrible. And Larry Summers in particular is a horror. He literally is a longtime Harvard professor. He is definitely he has been racist. He has been racist and sexist against the other Harvard employees there. But in his personal actions aside, is the damage that he's done to all of the United States and the planet. Like he's like the Emperor Mnuchin, who is Trump's current Treasury Secretary. Again, Goldman Sachs. What's his name? Hank Paulson, which was the one in 2008, also Goldman Sachs alumnus. So again, you can never vote. Whoever you vote in for president of the United States, whoever gets to flap his mouth and be the little the dude that you want to have a beer with the most, or whatever that president is. The people that will be running the economic and financial policy will always be Wall Street. Whoever you get in there. When it was George Bush, that's it. It was not George Bush who was making those decisions. Donald Trump actually complained that Steve Mnuchin, was behind his back architecting the $8 to $10 trillion bailout and stimulus package for mostly for the rich, and you got a $1,200 check. If you aren't married to an immigrant, and lots of other things. But anyway, so that guy is, while he is not a good guy, he worked at One West where he took 2 million homes from homeowners due to their underwater mortgages, and grandmas who are like based on 37-cent discrepancies, and the grandma her eyesight's not that good, her healthcare's not that good, and she like accidentally wrote in the wrong number on a check, and then his job was to take out. He's not a nice guy. At the same time, Larry Summers is like the Emperor Palpatine, who was like literally architecting all of the just wholesale, not that America and capitalism and its hyper-capitalist elite and plutocracy have ever been good, but he really accelerated and opened up the floodgates that Mnuchin plays in. Like Mnuchin is kind of like, got on the backs of one of the like lesser, he like rode on the back of one of the apocalyptic, he's like one of the horsemen riding the apocalypse, but Larry Summers like opened up the gates for the horsemen to come out. I don't really know I'm trying to think of a good metaphor. So anyway, long story short, that's not a good guy. So if that guy gets in power this will be he will have 24 years. See, that's the thing. Mnuchin has only been in the cabinet for 3 years. Larry Summers has been in the ear of presidents and in cabinets for 16 years. If he gets in this time, he will have been in for 24 years, right? This guy is like a permanent fixture of the United States federal presidential administration. So that's just one guy that's not particularly good. There's lots of other. I haven't gone through all the picks, but
that was the kind of because earlier when I brought it up, because it wasn't the main point of the stream or anything like that, you know what I mean? But it was like for me, because I'm an agnostic on how you should vote. I'm not going to tell you how to vote. Like, I'm not going to scold you on not voting or voting. And I had a lot of like, I did a whole hour-long video about like why Bernie like was like, hey, if capitalist realism and neoliberalism as like fundamental ideology are like, the biggest obstacle, then like Bernie calling out Wall Street, hey, that's fucking like go, and not just doing it in a Warrenite way where it's like actually, he's actually proven that he's going to give him grief consistently and raise hype about it, and people will, come to see that, and he's got the track record for blah 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 blah. I've got all these videos, right? But it's like, then people like use a lot of the same kinds of arguments I was using there, and then just transplant them onto Biden as though it's the same thing. And it's like, but you can't weigh the short-term harm reduction idea, how do you weigh short-term harm reduction against a whole generation of little kids growing up to think Uncle Biden is the fucking hero of the world because he defeated Trump, and now it's just like gung-ho, happy fucking, American apple pie, like we're back at it. And it's like, that's the basic, how do you weigh that out? And I think it's disingenuous just to act like I could tell you in the audience, just like, well, it's fucking obvious still. It's like, look, it's a complicated fucking thing. And if you're in a state where you have like that choice to make, then that's complicated. I hope you don't run around shaming other people on this. And ultimately, there's real life organizing that you can be getting into, or fucking read Capital, that kind of shit, right? That's my basic point, is like the energy directed towards organizing and theory is like the main thing. So
yeah, I would say like, just on that, like obviously like there's people obviously that are split in the left. So like we shouldn't spend, there's some people who are like we shouldn't spend so much on Bernie because they have problems with Bernie. And like obviously like, I don't think like, he's not the, he isn't Karl Marx obviously, but at the same time, like, a lot of things that he said, a lot of things that the 2016 and 2020 campaign have made like material differences in the culture of the United States. Whatever outcome, I think that like both campaigns have contributed to what I think people who prioritize people over profit something that they would like, which is shifting cultures and societies. Because at the end of the day, that's really those are things that are difficult to quantify, difficult, and it's, nobody's really done that. Nobody's really built a left in the United States. I mean, other than in the 30s, nobody's really seen how do you build a left in the neoliberal, post-industrial, post-computer science, international empire that the United States. The other important thing to remember is, the United States, the scale of monopolar, imperial, military, cultural, financial hegemony across the planet that the United States has now is different as well from the 30s. Britain, France, these other powers were also there, and so it's different. So I'm not gonna go from that. But I will say that Bernie's support, supporting the Bernie campaign, somebody on the left, and then supporting Biden campaign is very different. Like I don't feel like like you said, like I'm kind of, I would say I'm kind of also agnostic about that, and I definitely feel like I never said I would always say, like, don't put like 100% of your energy only into presidential politics. Just generally, you should do like building dual power structures, mutual aid. Like if I like, for just as an example, if I put 100% of my energy like into campaigning in 2016 and 2020, we wouldn't have this space right now, right? Because I wouldn't have been like trying to figure out how to, like, acquire property, build a sustainable, worker cooperative, game company as small as it is. I would love it to grow, and I'm working with other people hoping to, do in as egalitarian as matter as we can manage in our current neoliberal capitalist system, trying to grow that. And we wouldn't have this platform to be streaming from if I had like dedicated like all of my energy, because there's an option. I was involved like to an extent in like Occupy, and I did some, not a whole lot, but in the Bernie campaign of both of them. I'll definitely at least shout them out, and definitely like encourage people to look it up. But if I dedicated like it's really a matter of like how much of my limited time, energy, attention, to use theory Cleave's concept, how much are we going to put? And I think that for Bernie, it's justified to put significantly higher percentage of your time, energy, and attention than it's justified to put into Biden. Like if you're taking like 60, 70, 80% of your time and attention and throwing it into Biden, I mean, I don't know. I don't know about that. I think you might have to like maybe you got to go read some Capital, watch some theory plea videos, just take a deep breath, think up, reevaluate your life choices. Like, I don't know. Cause I don't know. I look at that guy and I go, it's a matter, like, just, I think of things in a very strategic. I mean, this is what you learn another thing that you learn when you're dealing with the plutocracy and how they think. They think in terms of return on investment, right? It's like, if I'm going to invest, 10, 20 hours a week on X, I'm not to say that we want to think in that code calculating, maximization of profit, but I mean, strategically, if we want to like make real moves in the real world and better our standing, we got to think strategically. Like, are we going to put 80% of our, what return on investment are we going to get just going, hey, we all just get Biden for like, maybe he might be slightly less racist than Trump, but I mean, like, they're both kind of like, who can be more Chinese and xenophobic than the other one? Like,
they both seem to want World War III.
They both seem to want World War III. Like, at least, now it's like, like, that's a material difference that I was pointing out recently. It was like, in the Obama election, Obama, and I would say it's lesser, but still in the Clinton election, it was like they were running on like hope, change, a kind of positive, like appealing to angels, right? And as a cultural phenomenon, obviously Obama didn't do a lot of these things. Like I've already pointed out, the policies and the people in the cabinet, they're super neoliberal, super capitalist. At the same time, like what Obama was running on was like, we can, similar to what Bernie was kind of running on, like, we can be better. We don't just have to go down this kind of like capitalist, like inward looking nationalist, like kind of like, like kind of like quietly racist and sometimes loudly racist and xenophobic version of America. We can be like, obviously Obama didn't bring that about, but what Obama ran on was something else, and that it does impact culture, right? And sometimes negatively because people feel betrayed and burnt out. But at the same time, that's a material difference from 2020 when it's like they're like two Trumps. They're like, no, I'm more racist than him. Actually, I hate China more. Trump was secretly working with China, and that's like at that point, like with Bernie, it's like at least like, hey, kind of like Obama, like hey, we can provide Medicare for all. Let's focus on, let's focus on, obviously it's not as far left as other people, but his the message and the direction, it was like, let's build in the direction of the left. Let's build in the direction of like, of helping each other, of healing each other, of like more egalitarian society, right? And then with the, yeah. So again, just for that alone, the whole like, kind of like, well, Bernie's gonna move the culture. So the moving the culture argument for me just falls through with Biden. It's like he's not. What the hell is he running on? He's like like running on a black hole. We're gonna go back to what? We're gonna go back. For me, it's more like we're gonna go back to 1970s where he was even more racist, like working on busing and just he's become more outwardly with his, at least his campaign. It's just become more and more. He's almost like reverting, not even going back to 2016, or he's talking about going back to like 1970. Like, let's go back to the civil rights movement. I never really liked the civil rights thing the whole time. And we can be white America, it's fine. Like with some of the things that the campaign is going at. Because obviously there is a critique of Trump that's like Trump and his administration has obviously failed abominably to deal with the COVID crisis. Clearly, 92,000 deaths, right? 1,200 times the cases of Vietnam. Several hundred times. Any other country is the worst on the planet. Deaths, abominable. Trying to cover it up, the worst on the planet by far. And you could just critique like he totally failed, and look inward, right, and critique America, and we can do better than this, right? But no, it's just like they're both looking outward at China. No, it's all other people. And if we just get rid of those people, or stop working with those people outside of us, so it's things are gonna get better. And so from that standpoint, it's just like whatever your calculation was. Okay, I'm gonna take 1% of my time and push my family and try to get people to vote, or I'm gonna take 10 or whatever it was. It needs to be like significantly less in terms of return on investment for how much we're gonna get in terms of actually helping people from both the harm reduction and from like reformer or revolutionary movement for the United States and the planet. Post as far as since Biden is the only choice right now. So anyway, I think that's pretty much all I should say about that.
Yeah, and by the way, Holly was in the chat saying Biden and Trump are like Pepsi and Coke, and then a bunch of people got really defensive of Pepsi, saying that was a bad analogy because they like their Pepsi. But it's a joke.
Pepsi Pepsi tastes better than either of those people. Like Biden and Trump are both like hydroxychloroquine laced with bleach and Windex. And literal like bad cocaine, and then like injected straight into your veins. Like they will both kill you, like in the same way that the president of the United States recommended cures for COVID will all kill you. Bleach, Windex, and hydroxychloroquine, which he's apparently I don't think he's taking it. I doubt he's taking it. I know he's not. I don't think he's taking it because he knows that COVID is bad and it's real because he has everyone around him, including his personal person who comes out and dresses him, the valet. His secretary, his 75 a day Big Mac maker, or I don't know how many, he has a lot of them. Steak cooker. Everybody around him has to wear masks, but he doesn't, right? So he knows that it is good to prevent a actually deadly disease, but he doesn't want us to be seen as weak by all of his kind of proto-fascists or some or right wing. I don't have to work because I'm a big. The mask is not. That's not, I think the mask is actually a very useful tool. People who are wearing the mask in public to prevent the spread of aerosolized COVID particles and droplets, because you can see, because the mask isn't about protecting yourself, right? If you're talking about an individualist and atomized neoliberal culture of individual rational consumers, or just selfish capitalists, or which is about personal gain over public demise, right? The mask is a symbol because the mask doesn't protect you, right? In public, it protects other people, right? So those people who choose to wear the mask are inconvenienced to themselves a little bit. It feels a little funky. Everybody can't see you. It makes your breathing a little different. But what are you doing? But you're helping other people not get sick in case you are sick, not because you are sick, but in case you get sick, right? So it's literally a sign of I care about the community, right? So you look which countries and which peoples, which towns, which peoples inside of countries, right, are choosing to care about the collective health over their own personal machismo, inconvenience, right? Look at Vietnam, right? unanimous. Look a lot of Asian countries, South Korea, like Big Island. When I go out around here, I see like basically everyone, and also the government obviously has ordered requiring masks in public spaces and stores, etc. But that also says like, you know, we care about public. We will choose to inconvenience ourselves, and people don't have to see us like, you know, talking every single second of the day. And we'll choose to do that for public health because we care more about public health than our personal benefit, our personal, you know, freedom, right? Freedom to do what again, right? So I think that like, so you look where are they? You know, I don't want to say. You look at the states that are, and a lot of it's the more right wing, who's asking to like open everything back up. You know, you can kind of see, you can see the lines, right? I see very few like essential workers, you know, people of color, marginalized people, like working class people who aren't like, you know, on a particular side. I see them, most of them choosing to wear masks in public, and basically everybody around here. Very few. So anyway, that's all I'll say about that.
Oh wait, hold on. I've got a button for this. I've got a clapping button. I don't, actually, you'll hear it on your.
Thanks a lot, virtual simulated auditorium.
Well, it was great having you on. So
yeah. Anyways, but yeah. What did Holly say? Something?
What's Holly saying now? Well, we're talking about how the newer example is that more instead of Pepsi versus Coke, it's more like two soggy biscuits. One slightly more burnt than the other, and less burned. One had vinegar spelled
Amazing.
On it. Pick one. And then actually, speaking of the Pepsi Coke thing, here I'm gonna click this button too.
I like Diet Pepsi. You like Diet Coke, but we both want to kill Jeff Bezos.
But as long as we both want to kill Jeff Bezos, we can all agree. In Minecraft.
All right.
Yeah. So. All right.
Anyways.
Anyway.
Yeah. So anyway, thanks everybody. I'm about to say like who should we rate next, but I'm like, it's not my stream.
Yeah. I'll probably want to play your trailer, and then I'll probably say some shit as I close out. So.
Okay.
Yeah, look at that. So I was able to use the green screen to have you talking over this background right here.
Oh yeah, cool. Yeah.
You look super cyberpunky and badass. So.
All right.
Yeah, fuck yeah. All right. Cool. Well, have a good rest of your night.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming by. That was fun.
Yeah.
And sounds like the music stopped in the backgrounds. Huh. We run out of music somehow? I thought that I was listening to some chill background tunes. Let's see if I can pull that back up really quick. And somebody in the chat said, someone that came into the YouTube chat. I realized why so many more people are in the YouTube chat than in the Twitch chat, and the reason was because a lot of people were like, "Oh, I'm gonna go back on the stream and I'm gonna see what happened." Oh, hi, Ann.
Hey.
So you also get to say your closing piece. Sorry, I was just like,
that's all good. I'm just chilling.
Yeah, Larry fucking Summers, eh? I had no idea that was the one and only architect. Well, not the only, but one of the big architects and profiteers off of the last couple of recessions, and that he was so apparently he did some illegal shit in the 70s, and then Kamala Harris let him off for it, which was what somebody
not
in the YouTube
surprising.
Chat. Yeah, not surprising at all. But also one of those people in the YouTube chat was like, went back on it, saw what you were dealing with, saw that person say that shit. You deserve to go off you deserve to vent for a second. Oh, well, thank you. No matter what, I guarantee you someone's clipped it and they're waiting for an opportune time to use it in some video in the future. But oh well. Oh fucking well. That's what happens. You fucking you never live that shit down. If you ever
We're all gonna die one day. So when we die, it won't matter. So
I hope that my fucking if they use that in like my cancellation video, like you make sure to like my gravestone eventually in the future someday to be like, Theory Plebe is happily deceased, not dealing with your piece of shit ass anymore, and you are going to be left, and the reason you are currently in toxic piles of trash fighting over water and eating each other is because of this shit you fucking do, instead of like focusing your vitriol or fucking nitpicking on the ruling class, who are the ones who obviously need to be the primary targets. And I think generally speaking, everybody could probably agree with that. And but that's the thing that when we were talking about earlier, that should have been something everyone could have agreed on. But it's like, anyway, Nuchin, not Summers with recession. Oh, okay. Thanks, Fart Huffin. I thought that Summers was one of the big architects of the recession because he was the one who got those laws that were in some ways chaining Wall Street lifted. And as Biden says, we need to unchain Wall Street. So anyway, but we're going to play the Neo Feud trailer, and we'll be raiding out here in a second. So you've all got a hot second to say shit in chat if you want to. But all right, let's go ahead and on with the, here we go.
The Illuminati. The Illuminati created us. They wanted to build a god with their own hands, and instead they created us.
Just because I'm made of silicone and aluminium, I must be doing something wrong. That's machine stereotyping, that is.
That's reality, that is. Machines are second-class citizens.
Humans are sentient persons by default, ma'am. They have personhood by heredity.
There are thousands upon thousands of overqualified slum dwellers. You are my peon. Don't you get it?
This wasn't a job. It was always just an excommunication sentence.
We're pawns in a feud bigger than we can imagine. Turn the cogs of the machine before Leviathan grinds you up and swallows you and yours.
We don't get to choose our hand, comrade. Prince, peon, rich, poor, human, robot.
I invented the crux of the royalist power, the secret to consciousness, our existence itself, the meaning of life.
I'm the $6 billion baller, not some troubled youth.
You are my greatest creation of all.
God's had to build my own family. I hate your son. I hate your son.
I'm happy to smash all of the crowns and throw the gold shards down to the people. I will be the iconoclast queen.
But who makes you queen anyway? You? You and whose army, princess? You and whose army?
And there you have it, folks. Neo Feud, get it today. Help support this Silver Plebe commune. And my headphone's about to break. I'm about to fall asleep. And Anne, I'm going to give you a moment to, talk for a second while I set up the raid stuff.
Oh, geez. Hi, everyone. It's Anne. I'm playing Stardew Valley. It's a grand time. It's almost 5 a.m. What is sleep schedule during this time? I don't know. I don't have one. But,
sleep schedule?
I think this was an important conversation. And I think, we started this stream just kind of briefing on the Mexie Vaush live stream that happened a little bit ago. And I'll just say there are certain modes that a lot of leftists take in the name of, identity. And it's really harmful to organizing and to actually, achieving the goals of leftism when a lot of people do this. Oh, like, you're white, shut the fuck up, everything you do or say is just white fragility. And like,
which, by the way, we obviously think that's a real thing. It does exist, but
it's a real thing. Like, yeah, that, because that's the thing. I know someone could find this and go, oh, this whole stream was just a bunch of white people being fragile. And it's like, no, I fully support I fully believe in intersectionality, and I fully like I want to fight for what's right, and I know that I do have privilege, and I want to fight for like every person who is being harmed by this system a lot more than I am. But you go in these spaces, and I've experienced them too. I've been in like organizing under leftist spaces for like 2 years now, and it's terrible. Like, it's fucking horrible, because people just, nothing's right, and no one is good enough for anyone, and every single thing is bad, especially if it's said by a white person, and so nothing gets done. And so it's like things like this that I'm like, ugh, I don't have any I literally have like zero hope for the left sometimes. I'm like, I should just give up, because we're so divided. We can't just all like.
I'm a brown person, and it's not all white fragility, smiley face, in the
Yeah.
YouTube chat.
I know, and I'm not saying everyone, but it's
no. He's just agreeing with you. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's just really frustrating seeing the left so divided. And I just wish everyone would be nice to each other and listen to each other and like get things done, instead of like whining on Twitter about how they need an apology because their feelings were hurt, and then that's like, oh, my activism for the day. I made
set this thing out of context.
Yeah, like, I'm sorry, shitting on ContraPoints isn't activism. Well, I said it. like the thing, you can disagree with people. You can say that people are wrong. You can criticize people and their work. Like, all of that is fine, but the way that I see it, it's weaponized in the left, and it's like all of this negative energy and attention is focused on like, Natalie's a fucking white supremacist, turf. I don't know what they call her these days. Probably something along those lines.
Oh, they do, yeah.
But just like that, like,
well, she's a fucking liberal anyway. Jesus, yeah.
Yeah,
but
putting
you know
all
why
this
she's a liberal is because she doesn't want to be around these people.
Negative and not constructive energy into the left is really, really, really harming us. I'll leave it at that. Constructive criticism and holding people accountable for actually harmful stuff is super important if we're gonna have a better world to live in. But this whining, crying, fucking being sensitive about like random YouTubers that you don't know, like, literally just don't watch their videos. Like, if someone if a left tuber offends you so much, don't watch them. Focus on something else. Like, the left is just really negative. It's a really, really negative, toxic space because of this mode, and I just wish people would, like, get a life. Get a life and do good, or shut the fuck up. So, that's my closing thought.
Well, you're negative, Ann. Listen to yourself. You're being... I'm just kidding.
I know.
So, yeah, that was...
I'm just...
But no, we don't... Cool. We're normally we're not. And so, anyway...
No, we're not. Yeah. But tonight was just... This is just what the stream was about. So...
So, thanks everybody for joining. Yes, at the end of the day, focus your fucking rage. Try to focus as much as it is possible on the people on the top of the fucking lobster pile. And but more important than them, try to remember the fucking system that fosters and creates them. And with that, much love.
Wait, before you go, I'm gonna put the Vaush Mexie.
Oh, I already did it in the YouTube chat. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
it's in the chat. Okay, perfect. You already did that.
Yep.
Cool.
All right, folks. I'm gonna unmute. It looks like she's like Pixel Mixel is watching Innuendo Studios. So
Yeah, but Frypan, that's a sense of
Folks,
entitlement that shouldn't
here for a
exist.
good time.
The
We're
entitlement
both
that women
canceled
should
now.
have to have sex with
R.I.P.
men should not exist.
Is that someone said?
Like less than the
They both lead to bullshit. The mode devolves quickly into accountability, which is very retributive. Yeah, but the thing is like maybe you should spend a little less time trying to expect accountability out of people you don't know, and maybe people online should fucking realize that holding institutions accountable is different than holding individuals accountable. And at the end of the day, a lot of things are problems that you don't have answers to online, and that you can't get to the bottom of. There's a lot of things you can't know for sure, but guess what? There is certain things we can know for sure. Go recap. Much love. Take care. Here's a raid.
Bye.
It happens often during